Chapter 897. Those five titled Dalu aren't simple. Wang Feng looked at the five titled Dalu from the Thousand Dao sect. Honestly speaking, he didn't want to fight the Thousand Dao sect. This was because the Thousand Dao sect couldn't defeat him. However, the fact that the Thousand Dao sect had the angelic holy sword reminded Wang Feng of the Qianrenshua. He felt that something was amiss. Just as Wang Feng was in a daze, Tang San held his trident and clashed with the Thousand Dao sect. Ning Rongrong stomped her foot and snorted. Her seventh soul ring lit up. The 9 treasure star glazed pagoda started to expand, and Ning Rongrong's body shone with a dazzling light. 9 treasure true body. Following this, Ning Rongrong's body started to turn illusory. It was as if she had fused with the 9 treasure star glazed pagoda. Several streaks of light shot out from the 9 treasure star glazed pagoda and landed on Tang San, Xiao Wu, and the others like falling stars. Ma Hongjun and Bai Qinxiang attacked the 2 titled Dalu beside Hulaina. Oscar used the mirror intestine to replicate Ma Hongjun's abilities. As he was used to it, he was able to unleash more power. Shen Lingqi was brewing all sorts of beer. As for Wang Feng and Tang San, they were naturally going to deal with the Thousand Dao sect and the 5 titled Dalu. The streaks of light that represented strength and soul power landed on Tang San's body. The Thousand Dao sect and Tang San didn't use any soul skills. The angelic holy sword and the sea god's trident collided for the first time. A terrifying shockwave was unleashed and dispersed the clouds. However, even though Tang San had been strengthened by Ning Rongrong, he was still sent flying by the first collision. Xiao Wu hugged him by the waist and managed to stop him from being sent flying. The angelic holy sword wasn't as heavy as the sea god's trident. However, the difference between their soul power ranks was simply too great. Moreover, with the strength of the Thousand Dao Flow's body, it was much stronger than the current Tang San. In comparison, the Thousand Dao sect body only shook slightly. He wasn't affected at all. This collision also brought Wang Feng back to reality. Tang San immediately knew that he was no match for this exceptional Dalu. In fact, he was far from being a match for her, especially when the other party also had a divine artifact. But Tang San realized that the Thousand Dao sect was very unfamiliar with using the divine artifact. For example, if he poured 100% of his soul force into the angelic holy sword, he would only be able to unleash 80% of its power. Otherwise, that simple exchange of blows just now would have definitely caused him serious internal injuries. After coughing a few times, Tang San looked at the 1,000 streams with a serious look. The Thousand Dao Flow, flying in the air, was far more agile than him on the ground. The most troublesome thing was that the sky was not restricted by plants. He was unable to borrow the power of the Blue-Silver Emperor to deal with the Thousand Dao stream. If he flew up as well, he would be at an even greater disadvantage. This was because in the sky, even Possessee did not dare to say that he could win against the 1,000 streams. Gravity Swamp. Tang San's left arm glowed. His spiritual energy locked onto the 1,000 streams. Gravitational Mire was a soul skill that Air Ming had obtained from his soul bone, and it was similar to his gravitational domain. The range was not big, and it could only be concentrated in a small area. However, its power was not inferior at all. An invisible gravity fell on the 1,000 streams, but the 1,000 streams laughed loudly. Gravity? It's useless. Kid, are you still not going to make a move? After saying that, 1,000 streams' soul rings lit up, and his body was covered in a layer of faint golden flames, as if he was isolated from all gravitational pressure. His figure was not restricted in any way. It was too small to restrict him in the sky. Seeing this, Tang San sighed. The golden flames on the other party's body should be a powerful control-immune soul skill. Tang San suspected that his Blue-Silver Emperor might not be able to control the other party. The soul skill of 100,000-year soul bone was so powerful, but it was unable to control the 1,000 streams. Old man, I'm afraid that you won't be able to withstand my attack. Wang Feng hesitated for a moment, and the golden lotus in his hand spun, and several golden rays of light fell on Tang San and Ma Hongjun. In the next moment, roar! A terrifying aura suddenly erupted from Ma Hongjun's body. His entire body was shining with golden light, and even the flames on his body seemed to have turned golden. The heavenly crow Douluo and the earth dragon Douluo were shocked. This burly fatty was only a rank 82 soul Douluo before, but his aura was not much weaker than theirs now. What the hell is this? A divine soul skill gave an 8-fold increase in all attributes, as well as a powerful immunity to all sorts of statuses. They would not be affected by any control, and they would be immune to pain. Their fighting strength was naturally very abnormal. Furthermore, Ma Hongjun and the rest had trained on the Sea God's Island for 3 years, and their body's potential had been greatly increased. This 8-fold increase in combat power was barely enough for him to withstand. However, even with Ma Hongjun's body, his skin was now filled with blood, and there were thin veins and patterns on his skin. From his neck to his temples, densely packed veins protruded like earthworms. Wang Fengxin thought to himself, the divine soul skill's amplification was getting stronger and stronger. However, their bodies were unable to withstand such a huge increase in strength. From this, it could be seen that a divine soul skill was a double-edged sword. This level of amplification was very rare in the world. An 8-fold increase in all attributes was an unimaginable number. If an ordinary person suddenly had 8-fold strength, he might be able to kill his enemy with a punch, but his arm would probably be completely shattered. Even if an ordinary person suddenly had 2-fold strength, his arm would still be injured with a punch, let alone 8-fold. It was the same for soul masters. All this while, Wang Feng had rarely enhanced them. Especially after rank 40 to 50, it was even less. This was because the amplification was too strong, and with their small bodies, they could not withstand it. Ning Rongrong and the rest could withstand the first 2 to 3 times amplification with their bodies after a round of demonic training. However, as their ranks increased, the amplification became even more abnormal, and their bodies could not keep up. A divine soul skill. Only a body like his would be effective without any side effects. Hence, Wang Feng did not use a divine soul skill on Bai Qinxiang. If he used it, they would probably not be able to adapt immediately. On the contrary, it would have the opposite effect. Ma Hongjun was a soul warrior, so he was slightly better. At this moment, with his soaring aura and combined with Bai Qinxiang, he was barely able to fight back and forth with the 2 title Dalu, Sky Crow, and Earth Dragon. But following that, the injuries on his body increased. In comparison, Tang San on the other side was much better. After all, he was the heir of the Sea God, and his body's potential was extremely strong. At this moment, he suddenly endured an 8-fold increase, and his entire body erupted with an intense light, and his entire body seemed to be trembling slightly. The 1,000 streams condensed slightly. With his perception, he could clearly sense that under that golden light, Tang San's aura suddenly increased by several times. Chapter 898. In the next moment, the halberd in Tang San's hand was like a rainbow. He shook it violently and gathered all his strength to attack the 1,000 Dao flow again. Although the first 3 moves were very powerful, they all needed to be controlled and stored up power. Although the first move was a control move, Tang San didn't think he could use Unpredictable Storm to restrict the 1,000 Dao flow if it wasn't a sneak attack. With the 1,000 streams in the sky, it would be too easy for them to dodge his various skills. Therefore, the simplest move was the move he wanted to use the most. Moreover, his physical strength had reached the limit of his limits. With the support of his deification power, only Tang San could barely unleash an 8-fold increase in strength. If it was any more, he wouldn't be able to do it. Unlike Wang Feng, who could increase his strength by more than 40 times when he was in his peak state, the power of the blood patterns alone could increase his strength by more than 10 times, almost 20 times. Wang Feng glanced at it. Little Three's halberd was already very strong to be able to withstand the amplification of his deification. After obtaining 400,000-year halberds, Even a rank 98 titled Dalu might not be able to withstand this attack. Unfortunately, his opponent was the 1000 Dao flow. Tang San's soul power was still only at rank 94. Sixth soul skill, Angel's godly strength. The 1000 Dao flow roared, and his body seemed to expand several times. In the next moment, he slashed his sword towards Tang San. This was the sword. Boom! The entire space exploded with a blazing light. The sea god's trident was instantly repelled. Tang San's entire body instantly flew out. Fortunately, in his deification state, he was immune to many effects. The golden flames on the sword had the effect of purifying soul power, so it was useless against him. However, the rebound of the power caused Tang San's palm to crack, and many blood patterns appeared. This angel's godly strength could cause the 1000 Dao flow's next attack to be more than 5 times stronger. It was only one move, but it easily sent Tang San flying. The strength of a rank 99 peerless Douluo with an angelic holy sword was far beyond everyone's imagination. If it weren't for the deified soul skill, the 1000 streams could have severely injured Tang San. One had to know that 1000 Daolu's angel domain could completely suppress Tang San's blue-silver emperor domain. The huge gap in soul power caused soul masters to fall behind in all aspects. Wang Feng glanced at the 1000 streams. His golden lotus actually had the ability to raise one's soul power rank. However, this ability was too perverted. This perverted ability went both ways. If he wanted to use it on himself, he wanted to release all of his compressed soul power under the catalysis of the golden lotus. The more it catalyzed, the higher the rank of his soul power. Thus, it was closely related to the golden lotus. However, if he were to cast it on someone else, it would be equivalent to bestowing his compressed soul energy to someone else through the golden lotus. Class 8 soul force didn't appear out of thin air. If Wang Feng used this move, Tang San might not be able to reach rank 99, but he definitely wouldn't be able to withstand Wang Feng's rank 89 soul power compression. Therefore, Wang Feng rarely used the Golden Lotus's various amplification abilities on others. It was them who couldn't bear it. The Golden Lotus's abilities were more like a perfect fit with one's body. Of course, recovery and healing didn't count. That was effective on any living being. Kid, your auxiliary ability is really interesting. 1000 Dalu looked at Wang Feng. He's a rank 94 soul master. Under your amplification, I have to use my soul skill to receive it. He was naturally very clear about the changes in Tang San's combat strength. However, you're too arrogant. 1000 Dalu snorted and glanced at Tang San. Your heart was destroyed. Although I don't know how you survived, do you still have the strength you used to have? Or can you only assist others? It was normal for 1000 Dalu to think this way. After all, he had never been to the soul-hunting forest. Everyone was also slightly shocked. His heart was destroyed. Oscar and the others gasped and looked at Wang Feng. How could he survive like that? How heavy was Bibidan's attack? With Xiao Wu's help, Tang San stood up with difficulty and looked at Wang Feng. He knew that Brother Feng felt that he had the strength he used to have. Otherwise, Brother Feng wouldn't have used Sea God's trident to use unpredictable storm to restrain the million-year soul beast in the great Stardo forest. However, if what 1000 Dalu said was true, how did Brother Feng survive? His heart was gone. Tang San touched his chest. If his heart was gone, he would die instantly. There was no need to say anything. I'm just experimenting. Wang Feng looked at 1000 Dalu. Old man, you're very strong. You even used the angelic holy sword to distract me, but if I really attacked, I'm afraid. At this point, suddenly, the 5 titled Douluo behind 1000 Dalu suddenly shouted in unison. In an instant, a 5-colored light barrier suddenly enveloped the entire space. The 5 of them stood in midair in the form of their martial soul true bodies, releasing 5 different lights. 5 in 1, martial soul fusion skill. Their execution speed was very fast. In just over 10 seconds, the 2 of them had already completed the fusion of their 2 moves. Wang Feng was thinking about how the angelic holy sword in Thousand Douluo's hand was in his hands, as well as the ability and use of the golden lotus. At the same time, he wanted to see the strength of Tang San and the others. He wanted to let them fight first and accumulate a wave of experience before making a move later. He didn't realize that the 5 of them had already executed a martial soul fusion skill. There was no doubt about the strength of a martial soul fusion skill. The moment the 5-colored light barrier formed, everyone's body suddenly shook. Ma Hongjuan's martial soul true body was instantly found by a 5-colored light. In an instant, his martial soul true body disappeared. Bang! He was directly sent flying by the Earth Dragon Douluo with a slap. The rest of the people were the same. Whether it was the martial soul true body or the martial soul possession, they immediately disappeared. Ning Rongrong, who was beside Wang Feng, directly appeared from the 9 Treasures Star Glazed Pagoda. The huge 9 Treasures Star Glazed Pagoda also disappeared instantly. My martial soul seems to be useless. Ning Rongrong hurriedly helped Wang Feng, and her expression suddenly changed. Wang Feng frowned slightly, and the golden lotus in his hand also disappeared. Could this martial soul fusion skill be able to restrict the use of everyone's martial soul? If so, it was a little powerful. 5-in-1 martial soul fusion skill. 5 elements reversal barrier. Thousand Dalu sneered. With the 5 titled Daluo's domain after martial soul fusion, it can restrict the martial soul of all soul masters in the barrier. They can't use their soul power. This barrier was originally used to deal with the Sea Gods Island. Together with the BB Dawn, even those sea soul masters on the Sea Gods Mountain are lambs waiting to be slaughtered. After hearing Thousand Dalu's words, everyone was so shocked that their scalps went numb. Tang Sin forced himself to use the soul power in his body, but he felt as if his soul power weighed 100,000 kilograms, and he couldn't move it no matter how hard he tried. It was restricted by an invisible force. It was the same for his martial soul. He couldn't even summon it. If he couldn't use his soul power, it meant that he might not even be able to use his soul bone. He could only use his body strength. But how strong could a soul master's body be? Tang San felt that the soul power in his body was restricted, which meant that he might not even be able to wield the sea god's trident. Even the trident between his eyebrows had become dim. Vaguely, even the connection between him and the sea god's trident had become weaker. If this barrier was used to deal with the sea god's island, the advantage that sea soul masters were so proud of in the sea would no longer exist. Once they were enveloped by the barrier, they would be like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. How strong are you without your martial soul? Kid, come back with me obediently. Thousand Dalu snorted coldly and looked at Wang Feng. The angelic holy sword in his hand bloomed with dazzling light. Silence. Tang San and the others stood together and watched with solemn expressions at this moment. Wang Feng shook his head and said, "Old man, if I don't use my martial soul and soul power, you might not be able to defeat me." As soon as he said that, Thousand Dalu was stunned. P.S. Cough, cough, it seems to be a little late. Chapter 899. On the Douluo continent, what was the most important thing to a soul master? Martial soul. Without a martial soul, a soul master's fighting power was very limited. Even a titled Douluo wouldn't be able to defeat a soul Douluo if they didn't use their martial soul and soul power. The Massacre City was a very obvious example. There were many rank 70 and even rank 80 soul masters who died in the hands of Tang San, Wang Feng, and Hu Liena. But the Massacre City was still considered good. This was because soul skills were the only things that couldn't be used in the capital of Massacre. The form of the martial soul and soul power could be used. But the 5 elements reversal barrier formed by this 5-in-1 martial soul fusion skill couldn't even release the martial soul and use soul power. The horror of this. Perhaps only Tang San and the others who were in it could understand the power of this martial soul fusion skill. It covered a large area and was completely controlled. To put it bluntly, Tang San and the others couldn't even defeat 2 titled Douluo in this state. Not to mention fighting against a strong soul master like the Thousand Dao Flow. They could probably beat them easily with just a breath. But at this moment, Wang Feng's words made their backs break out in cold sweat. Without using his martial soul and soul power, the Thousand Dao Flow still can't defeat him? Even Tang San, who knew Wang Feng very well, felt a little puzzled. Tang San quickly recalled the situation in the Great Star Do Forest. When he left, he saw it very clearly. Brother Feng was absorbing the soul ring of that million-year soul beast. He must have succeeded in absorbing it now. A million-year soul beast, what kind of concept was that? Tang San didn't know, but it was definitely unique for a soul master to improve. Maybe there's a possibility to defeat the Thousand Dao Flow? Xiao Wu, how much do you know about million-year soul beasts? Tang San asked Xiao Wu in a low voice. I'm not sure. Xiao Wu shook her head gently. A million years is the end for 100,000 soul beasts. I only know that after 100,000 years, soul beasts will experience a heavenly tribulation every 100,000 years. I'm not sure what a million-year soul ring will be like. I've never seen one before. That day was the first time I saw a million-year soul beast in the Great Star Do Forest. If even Xiao Wu didn't know about it, there was probably no one in the entire continent who knew about it. It was impossible for the master to know. But I think that even a million-year soul ring can't be used. In that case, its usefulness will be greatly reduced. Xiao Wu continued. Furthermore, I can't even use my soul power. I can't even use my soul bones, let alone soul skills. Tang San nodded slightly. No matter how strong something was, it had to abide by the rules. Unless a million-year soul ring could break through the rules and not be restricted by the 5-in-1 martial soul fusion technique. But Tang San thought it was impossible. A martial soul fusion skill formed by the fusion of 5 tidal Douluo was one of a kind on the entire continent. In fact, it was indeed impossible. Even if Wang Feng had a million-year soul ring, his martial soul was sealed, and his soul power was restricted, so he couldn't use his million-year soul ring. When Thousand Streams heard Wang Feng's words, he couldn't help but want to beat him up. Stinking brat. If it wasn't for the fact that I wouldn't be here talking to you. You still don't want to admit defeat? Catch him for me. After he finished speaking, Thousand Streams didn't do anything. The 2 tidal Doa beside Helena had already rushed towards Wang Feng. A person who couldn't use his martial soul and soul power, even if he was a tidal Douluo of the same level, could only be captured and trampled on. Helena, who was behind, stretched out her hand and wanted to stop them, but she knew that she couldn't command them now. Several rays of light landed on the 2 tidal Douluo from the temple's enforcement team behind her. Just now, Ma Hongjun fought the 2 tidal Douluo head-on in his divine transformation state, but he didn't cause much damage to them. He only blocked them. At this moment, the 2 tidal Douluo, Sky Crow and Earth Dragon, rushed over. Wang Feng took a step forward, and a strong aura suddenly rose from his body. It was invisible and colorless, but seemed to make the air a little heavier. With one step, the ground trembled slightly. The first to rush over was the Earth Dragon Douluo. Although he had been sent flying by Tang San's Sea God's Trident and fought with Ma Hongjun, his martial soul true body had already disappeared, and he couldn't use it for the time being. However, with the temple's enforcement team recovering, his fighting strength was still very strong. Although his martial soul possession wasn't as strong as his martial soul true body, he was still very strong as he rushed towards Wang Feng with the World Edge Douluo. The combination of agility type and assault type caused the 2 of them to be like 2 torrents. They either rushed towards the ground or swooped down from midair. 6th Soul Skill, Subduing Sea Serpent. The World Edge Douluo's claws released intense rays of light as he attacked Wang Feng. 6th Soul Skill, Earth Dragon Pestle Mountain. The Earth Dragon Douluo's body shone with a brownish-yellow light. Although he didn't have his martial soul true body, his aura was a little stronger in this boundary. Evidently, this 5 elements reversal boundary had an endless strengthening effect on martial souls with elemental attributes. It also had a certain strengthening effect on teammates. Wang Feng didn't move even though he was attacked by a strong attack. In the next moment, Wang Feng grabbed the Earth Dragon Douluo's dragon horn with a single hand. His hand was as quick as lightning. His other hand grabbed the Heavenly Crow Douluo's Heavenly Crow claw like an azure dragon spitting out clouds. Under the impact of the two enormous forces, only countless strong winds blew around Wang Feng, but they were unable to make him move at all. Following this, Wang Feng clenched his fists, and the two titled Douluo's auras became very chaotic. Their martial souls shook, and they felt an irresistible force coming from Wang Feng's palms. Bang bang! Wang Feng shook his wrist, and the two titled Douluo were easily flung away like shot put. The immense strength caused the two titled Douluo to be flung away. They crashed into the ground in the distance and landed right in the middle of the temple's enforcement team. They were smashed into pieces. A huge crater with a diameter of more than 10 meters was formed in the ground. The spiderweb-like crater was a little eye-piercing at this moment. The pure strength also impacted everyone's minds. Following this, Wang Feng leaped. Suddenly, the ground seemed to be shaking. The terrifying power caused the ground beneath his feet to shatter into more than 10 cracks that could be seen with the naked eye. Ning Rongrong was so frightened that she hurriedly leaned to one side. The length of the cracks even extended to Hu Liena's side. It was obvious how strong this leap was. Even the ground seemed to have caved in. Wang Feng was like a javelin as he shot towards the Thousand Dao stream. Everyone was shocked. They looked at the cracks on the ground and couldn't react in time. Chapter 900. Even Thousand Dao's Lu, who was in midair, was shocked. He raised the angelic holy sword and swung it down at Wang Feng, who had jumped into the air. What welcomed him was a huge fist. This fist seemed to be much weaker when it came from the ground. However, when this fist landed on the angelic holy sword, Thousand Dao's Lu felt his arm go numb. The angelic holy sword, which weighed tens of thousands of kilograms, almost flew out of his hand. Boom! As the fist and sword collided in midair, a deafening sound of collision rang out. What a powerful force! Thousand Dao's Lu was stunned. If his opponent had used his martial soul and soul power, it wouldn't be surprising that he could unleash such strength. However, the key was that his opponent didn't use his martial soul or soul power. He was able to take on the angelic holy sword with just his physical body alone. Furthermore, he had charged into the sky from the ground, so his strength would be weakened. Furthermore, his strength was weakened by his angelic domain. Thousand Dao's Lu's body trembled slightly. As he circulated his soul power, he was like a mountain in the sky. It was difficult to move him. However, the holy sword trembled slightly. It wasn't enough to do anything to him. Kid, with just this bit of strength, it is far from enough. Thousand Dao's Lu spun the holy sword in his hand and looked at Wang Feng arrogantly. How vast was the sky? In terms of surface area, it was bigger than the sea and bigger than the forest. In the sky, Thousand Dao's Lu was like a pillar. It wasn't comparable to the real sky, but it was impossible to defeat him in the sky without a martial soul or soul power. It's just an appetizer. Wang Feng waved his hand. The angelic holy sword was only 1/3 of the sea god's trident. However, it depended on who was using it. He had only used his physical body to punch earlier. He didn't use any other methods to increase his strength. Furthermore, his strength was weakened when he charged into the sky from the ground. After entering Thousand Dao's Lu's angelic domain, his strength was weakened again. Therefore, when his last punch landed on Thousand Dao's Lu's holy sword, the strength of his punch had been greatly reduced. After all, Wang Feng couldn't use his soul power. He couldn't even use his original Sin's domain. He couldn't negate his opponent's angelic domain. Otherwise, with his physical strength, he could easily send a titled Douluo flying with a punch or a casual attack. It was not to the extent that the Thousand Dao stream could not be shaken. However, he would not suffer any harm. The Earth Dragon Douluo and the Sky Crow Douluo were the same. Their sixth soul skills couldn't even harm Wang Feng's physical body. Even though he couldn't use his soul power, his soul bone was still attached to his body at all times. It was just that it couldn't use the soul skills in the soul bone, but its defensive capabilities were solid. It was impossible for a mere rank 93 titled Douluo to break through his defenses. The enhancement brought by the million-year soul ring, the cleansing of the dustless glass body, and the cleansing of the chaotic divine light. Wang Feng relied on his physical body right now. Most titled Douluo's soul skills couldn't harm him, unless it was a titled Douluo like Sword Dao Chan Xian, who was known for his offensive strength. He might be able to deal some damage to Wang Feng. However, even Sword Dao Chan Xian was unable to withstand Wang Feng's pure physical punch. However, it was a different story if it was the Thousand Dao stream. After the punch was weakened, it was probably similar to Tang San's Sea God's Trident. Hence, the Thousand Dao stream wasn't shaken at all. In the sky, the Thousand Dao stream was still very strong. It was impossible for him to defeat his opponent with just his physical body. At most, it would be a draw. Furthermore, his opponent had the angelic holy sword. However, Wang Feng didn't just possess his physical body. Blood patterns open. Wang Feng shouted in a low voice. He couldn't use his martial soul, and he couldn't use his soul power. However, Wang Feng still had the strength of his blood patterns and his extremely strong spiritual power. He had too many tricks up his sleeves. At least, he could unleash a terrifying strength if he unleashed a little of them. Right now, the strength of his 7 blood patterns had already reached a peak. It was a bottleneck. Wang Feng realized that he couldn't strengthen his 7 blood patterns no matter how much he cultivated. Previously, he had absorbed the power of a god twice, which caused such a change in the strength of his blood patterns. The first time was in the Rakshasa secret realm, where he absorbed the test sent by the Rakshasa god. The second time was in the sea god's holy pillar, where he absorbed the tests sent by the sea god. This directly caused Wang Feng's tests to be the first and second tests. The sea god was even more cunning. He divided the 2 tests into several options. After absorbing and evolving these 2 times, the strength of the blood patterns had increased his physical attributes to a very powerful level. Of course, it was only the increase of his physical attributes. In fact, it was equivalent to releasing the power of 7 different emotions in the blood patterns. It allowed him to enter a super explosive state. Each blood pattern had a 3-fold amplification effect. The last one was the most special. It was the key to absorbing the divine power back then. It had an amplification of more than 6 times. This kind of power was completely unbearable for ordinary people. This was because the power of these 7 different emotions would instantly crush a person's consciousness. Even if one obtained this power, they would be impacted by these emotions and become mentally retarded or be controlled by these 7 different emotions. Only Wang Feng, who had been tempered by the Red Lotus Hellfire and had a strong spiritual power, could remain unaffected. He could unleash the power of these 7 blood patterns. Once the 7 blood patterns were activated, Wang Feng's eyes were instantly enveloped by a pitch-black light. Streaks of blood-black flames condensed and burned around Wang Feng's body. It was as if they were going to devour everything. It was terrifying. When Wang Feng moved around as the white-clothed Popetiff, he used the power of the blood patterns the most. It was the key to how he could defeat so many titled Douluo back then. On the Sea God's Island, the power of the blood patterns had been cultivated to its complete form. Now that it was activated, it was naturally shocking. The dark aura that was emitted enveloped Wang Feng like a layer of torrential demonic flames. Tang San and the others had seen it before. However, at that time, they all thought that the other party was the white-clothed Popetiff. Now that they saw Wang Feng using this magical move personally, they were all amazed. In midair, the extreme dark aura made Qiandaoliu's heart skip a beat. As a possessor of the 6-winged angel martial soul, he could sense this aura very clearly. Back when Wang Feng was still in Martial Spirit City, he could sense it very clearly. Therefore, he was very dissatisfied with Wang Feng's interaction with a white-clothed Popetiff. As a holy and holy angel god, How could she be together with someone who was controlled by the power of darkness? However, along the way, especially now, such a dark power, he actually didn't lose his mind. He has complete control over this power. Chapter 901. Dalu stared at the current Wang Feng, who had only released the pure power of darkness. Logically speaking, a soul master should not be able to withstand this kind of power. He had never heard of any god of darkness, only that Rakshasa god symbolized evil and darkness. Moreover, to be able to release this kind of power in the 5 elements reversal barrier, this meant that only the power of a god could be immune to all of this. Just like Tang San, if he passed the 8th or 9th exam, then even if he did not use his martial soul, he would be able to use the sea god's power. He would still be able to use the sea god's trident freely. Could it be that this kid has also inherited the divine position? Dalu muttered. He could not explain this strange power. After the other party's identity was exposed, Dalu also calculated the source of Wang Feng's power. It could only be the other party's second martial soul, the Dark Angel martial soul, and it was the 12-winged Dark Angel martial soul. Could it be that there was another powerful Dark Angel god opposite the Angel god? But if that was the case, there would be no news of it all these years on the continent. If the other party had inherited the divine position, he would definitely have some perception, but there was none. Or rather, was it a fallen god? A holy land that did not leave behind the inheritance of a god in the Douluo continent? Dalu could not help but think of this possibility. But this idea was a little whimsical. Would a god fall? Dalu did not know. At this moment, Wang Feng's entire body was covered in flames. He lightly tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and in an instant, the ground shook even more exaggeratedly than before. A circular crater with a diameter of dozens of meters under Wang Feng's feet was visible to the naked eye. A terrifying force came from the ground. Everyone who had lost their martial souls and soul power, except for Tang San, were directly blown away. That condensed force shook their bodies, and they could even feel an intense pain. It made them extremely shocked. "Old man, take my punch." A leisurely voice that sounded like a demonic abyss instantly made Dalu's hair stand on end. Wang Feng's speed had already reached its limit. This was the state of the Void Realm. With his current spiritual strength, when he activated the Void Realm state, his perception was infinitely magnified. Even Dalu in the air could not dodge any of his attacks, although it was just a simple punch. But this punch was enough to shatter everything. In the blink of an eye, Dalu roared as his soul rings rose into the air. She unleashed her 6th soul skill, Angel's godly power. The angelic holy sword in his hand blossomed with holy light like the sun. The feeling of danger kept coming from the other party. There was no hesitation, no time. However, just as he unleashed this soul skill, that fiery figure landed in front of the 1,000 streams with that terrifying fist. Under the shock in his heart, Dalu's holy sword moved even faster and slashed towards the fist. Bang! The sacred sun sword that was burning with golden flames let out a muffled sound. Rumble. In the next moment, Dalu's expression changed drastically, and he was sent flying. One had to realize that he was no longer the Dalu that had been injured by Possessi on the Sea God's Island. He was now a peerless powerhouse with an angelic holy sword in his hand. If Dalu hadn't used his soul power to hold onto the angelic holy sword, the punch would have sent it flying. Dalu was sent flying more than 100 meters away. The 3 pairs of wings on his back flapped crazily, and he barely managed to stay in the air. He looked at Wang Feng gloomily. There was a lingering look of shock in his eyes. With his 6th soul skill, he was sent flying with his angelic holy sword in the air. What a little monster! Dalu cursed in his heart. Dalu didn't doubt that Wang Feng had used the strength of a god. Dalu didn't believe that an ordinary soul master could achieve such a level of enhancement. The soul power within his body had been shaken by that punch and was fluctuating unsteadily. Although Wang Feng didn't use the various forms of the chaotic green lotus to enhance his strength, it was still no small matter. He even used the terrifying weight of the Xianming blood dragon armor. Although it wasn't 1,000,000 kilograms, it was at least 70 to 80,000 kilograms. It was about the same weight as when he fought with Long Xie. Dalu's martial soul and soul power were sealed. Wang Feng had many tricks up his sleeve. At this moment, the crowd below felt their scalps go numb. Wang Feng resisted the Dalu with his physical body and sent him flying with one punch. Tang Xin knew the power of the Dalu's attack best. In his state just now, the sea god's trident was sent flying without any resistance. If he hadn't been in his divinized state, Dalu's soul skill would have been enough to seriously injure him. Is this a strength that a human can have? Ma Hongjun couldn't help but ask. This pure strength. No wonder Captain could hold the sea god's trident without passing the sea god's test. With his strength, if he touches us, won't we fall apart? That's the Dalu. They hadn't seen the fight between Wang Feng and Bibi Dawn. Now that they saw such a terrifying strength, they were shocked. At the same time, they sighed because of the gap between them. Tang San remained silent. You should have felt that a soul master who wasn't even at rank 90 had such strength. Tang San also wondered if Brother Feng had inherited the power of a god. Otherwise, it would be too exaggerated. Old man, shall we continue? Wang Feng's spiritual intent moved, and the Xianming blood dragon armor on his body quickly disintegrated. Under his spiritual control, it formed a long sword that was a few meters long. The scarlet-green long sword emitted a soul-stirring glow. Wang Feng wore a faint smile on his face. Without using his martial soul or soul power, the strongest thing he had was the Xianming blood dragon armor. The Xianming flying sword controlled by his spiritual control was already unimaginably strong. Although he hadn't tested it yet, Wang Feng knew that even the Dalu couldn't resist his Xianming flying sword. Wang Feng's punch, just now, was to test how strong his body was after being strengthened by his million-year soul ring. Although the Dalu managed to withstand the punch, it wasn't easy. Do you think I'm afraid of you? The Dalu snorted. He didn't believe that Lin Fan could defeat him with brute force without even using his martial soul power. As he spoke, the Dalu's seventh soul ring lit up. In the next moment, streaks of golden light appeared in his eyes. The 3 pairs of light wings behind his back extended in all directions. Angelic martial soul, true body. Wang Feng's eyes brightened. He didn't see much of the Dalu when he fought with Possessi previously. This was his first time witnessing this exceptional Douluo's power. The Dalu's body was covered by balls of golden light. The wings on his back were more than 3 meters long. They were overflowing with golden light and seemed indestructible. Chapter 902. His body grew taller and taller until he was about 3 meters tall. He looked like a giant. Compared to other martial soul true bodies, this 6-winged angel martial soul didn't seem to have improved by much, but its might and aura, as well as the faint golden aura that was burning all over its body, far exceeded that of most martial soul true bodies. The strength of a god-ranked martial soul was evident at this moment. Just like Possessi's sea god, it exuded a unique divine aura. Layers of golden light rippled in the sky. With the support of the martial soul true body, the strength of the angel domain was multiplied. The ultimate form of the angel domain, heavenly holy light. When the wave-like golden light landed on Wang Feng's body, Wang Feng felt a burning sensation. It was as if he was going to be purified by the heat. Following which, the dark angel in his sea of consciousness seemed to be stimulated and suddenly roared in Wang Feng's mind. It shook Wang Feng's mind. In the next moment, Wang Feng also roared, and the 7 blood patterns on his body shone with a strange light. It was as if they were resisting the angel domain released by Thousand Dao flow. The all-encompassing golden light not only enveloped Wang Feng, but also Wang Feng. Even Tang San and the others were affected. The light seemed to be able to purify one's soul, and it carried an unparalleled strength that made it hard for everyone to breathe. Unable to use their martial souls and soul power to resist, they collapsed to the ground almost instantly. Only Tang San was sweating profusely, and he stood where he was. His body was trembling slightly, but he didn't collapse. The strength of a domain was greatly enhanced with the help of the martial soul true body. His blue-silver emperor domain was the same. Under the blue-silver emperor true body, it had the power of a myriad of things and could attach itself to every strand of blue-silver grass within the domain's range. The elegance and strength of a peerless Douluo were perfectly displayed at this moment. Brat, back then, you took my heavenly hall's judgment, although you broke it with one move. Thousand Dao Flow's voice was extremely loud, and everyone who heard it had the urge to bow down and worship him. However, I only had 30% of my strength back then, and I didn't use my martial soul true body. I didn't use this move under the domain. Under the influence of my martial soul true body and angel domain, the power of this move will reach its limit. This move is a divine skill. Last time was broken by you. This time, let's see how you break it. Divine skill. Wang Fengxin was stunned. The divine sea island's judgment of the great radiant heavenly hall was truly powerful. This was because the illusory image of heaven contained a special power of faith. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it a divine skill. The ninth soul ring of the Thousand Dao Flow could very well be a soul ring bestowed by the angel god. It was a super soul skill. It was similar to the sea god's 13 golden halberds. Wang Feng closed his eyes and concentrated. His mental power was pushed to the limit. In the next instant, Qian Daoliu's entire body was covered in a golden light that shot straight into the clouds. In the sky, the shadows of the clouds parted, and a grand and majestic ancient palace appeared from the clouds. Wang Feng narrowed his eyes. Ninth soul skill, heavenly hall of extreme radiance's trial. A voice rang out from Thousand Daos Lu's mouth as his ninth soul ring flew out from his body. The scarlet soul ring rapidly grew in size. In the end, it flew into the clouds and merged with the ancient palace. In an instant, the illusory palace suddenly became a little more solid. Two rays of light shot out from the radiant paradise and shone directly on Wang Feng's body, as if they were the eyes of a god. Dong, dong, dong. An ancient sound rang out from the heavenly hall of radiance. It was as if it was judging a sinner. Wang Fengxin was shocked. He sensed a power that transcended the mortal world. It was similar to when Tang San's sea god's trident appeared and bestowed the 13 golden halberds to Tang San in the great Stardow forest. At this moment, the ancient heavenly hall of radiance gave Wang Feng the same feeling. This horrifying scene demonstrated the strength and terror of a peerless Douluo. As the angel god's divine servant, Qian Dalu could also borrow the angel god's power. The angelic holy sword in his hand turned into a ray of flowing light and flew above the heavenly hall of radiance. A figure clad in golden armor and with wings on his back appeared above the heavenly hall of radiance. He held the angelic holy sword and stood in the void, exuding a peerless divine aura. In the next instant, the majestic heavenly hall of radiance suppressed the void and locked down on everything before it landed on Wang Feng's body. Wang Feng groaned. His body trembled slightly. He felt as if a 10,000-foot tall mountain was pressing down on him, and he was instantly enveloped by the heavenly hall of radiance. The figure disappeared. That terrifying power made Wang Feng feel as if he was facing the sea god's projection in the great Stardow forest. Divine skill. Is this the angel god's divine skill? Wang Fengxin was shocked. He looked around him. Within the layers of pure white ring-shaped buildings, there were many angels with wings on their backs. They stood solemnly in the void and solidified themselves. Their bodies were all illusory. At this moment, every single one of them exuded a unique aura. Even though it was far inferior to the projection of the sea god, there was not much of a difference between their numbers and their combined strength. He looked at himself again. He was on a cross, and streaks of golden light bound his body tightly. It was as if he was going to be judged. It was completely different from when he was on the sea god's island. His aura was also very different. Old man is still very strong, Wang Feng muttered. He wanted to use old man Dalu as a tool to compare his strength. It seemed like he was too arrogant. Wang Feng looked around at the countless angels in the center of the heavenly hall of radiance. They were all projections, but they were very real. It was as if they really existed. At this moment, in Wang Feng's vision, at the top of the heavenly hall of radiance's projection, there was a golden figure clad in armor and holding the angelic holy sword. The angelic holy sword seemed to be countless times bigger in his hand. Could this be the angel god? Wang Feng looked at the projection. It was slightly inferior to the sea god's projection. But how could a mortal resist the divine consciousness of God? He held the angelic holy sword in his hand, and all the angels in the heavenly hall of radiance did the same. Next, he held the sword and slashed at Wang Feng, as if he wanted to slay all the evil in Wang Feng's body. All the angels in the heavenly hall of radiance seemed to be in agreement as they slashed at Wang Feng with the countless golden swords. Xianming flying sword, Wang Feng roared out. The scarlet-green flying sword beneath his feet turned into countless swords at this moment. Wang Feng channeled his mental energy into the flying swords. Without soul power, Wang Feng could not use the 7 killing sword skill. But it was enough for him to use his mental energy alone. Like a myriad of swords, he slashed at the countless angels around him. P.S. 3 more. Chapter 903. The flying sword formed by the Xianming blood dragon armor was like a red and green waterfall, piercing toward the countless angels in the Hall of Light. The black flames around Wang Feng's body flickered, as if they were about to be extinguished at any time. Wang Feng's mind power was pushed to the limit, causing the black light to cover his eyes. This move was so powerful that Wang Feng had to take it seriously, especially the dark angel martial soul in his sea of consciousness. It seemed to have been awakened, roaring and shaking Wang Feng's mind. The power of the 7 blood patterns shone brightly under the roar of the dark angel martial soul. From afar, Wang Feng's body seemed to be flowing with 7 rivers of blood. However, Wang Feng was now shrouded in the shadow of the great Church of Light. The outside world had no idea what was happening, except for Dalu. Dalu's eyes flickered as he stared deeply at the majestic Hall of Light. This was his strongest move. The power of this divine skill was extraordinary. The conditions for using it were also extremely harsh. The last phantom had to rely on the angelic holy sword to summon it and intimidate the enemy. Dark angel martial soul, Dalu's eyes flickered. As the angel god-servant, the first thing in his heart was naturally the godhood. His granddaughter had the potential to inherit the godhood. Therefore, it was his lifelong wish to make Qian Rinxue a godhood. For this wish, Dalu did not hesitate to wipe out everything that stood in the way of Qian Rinxue becoming a godhood. To him, Wang Feng was not a hindrance. To a certain extent, he was an inspiration to Qian Rinxue. He even felt gratified when he saw that Qian Rinxue had become a godhood because of Wang Feng's death. However, he could not do that now. He was using this move to use the divine will of the angel god to check out Wang Feng's strength. What the hell is that dark angel martial soul? Was it good or bad for Xiao Shui? Dalu had made this decision the moment he saw that Wang Feng was still alive. A weak divine consciousness of the angel god was irresistible to mortals. Furthermore, the radiant heavenly hall was condensed from the power of faith. Without using his martial soul and soul power, it would be extremely difficult to break it. Staring at the scene in the radiant paradise, Dalu's pupils constricted. In the radiant heaven, countless scarlet and green flying swords swept across all of the angel projections like a long river of sunset. In an instant, the angel phantoms condensed from the power of faith were pierced into countless holes. They instantly turned into countless shadows and disappeared in the shadow of the heavens. What exactly is this kid's soul bone? Thousand Dao Lu was shocked. It wasn't like he hadn't seen that flying sword before. It used to be Pope Diff's standard weapon. It was originally pitch black. When he was on the Sea God's Island, it had turned green. Now, it had turned into a scarlet-green color. The increase in power was simply too exaggerated. Those angel phantoms were not simple. They were the descendants of the angels under the angel god. They were experts who possessed the six-winged angel martial soul. After their deaths, they gathered in the angel palace of the Elders' Hall. Thousand Dao Lu used this as an opportunity to combine it with the soul ring bestowed by the god to create such a powerful soul skill. Every illusory angel was an extremely powerful existence. The voices they emitted could easily shatter the judgment of the sinners in the Hall of Light. They represented the power of the holy light to carry out the judgment. Even the demigod experts who were stronger than Thousand Dao Lu and had more spiritual power than him would find it difficult to escape, not to mention attacking. Furthermore, in an instant, he was able to control so many scarlet and green longswords. Just how strong was this kid's spiritual power? In an instant, all of the angel phantoms turned into dust. This move had consumed more than half of Wang Feng's spiritual power. Wang Feng rarely split the Xianming Blood Dragon Thorn into so many flying swords. This was because the more separation, the more spiritual power was consumed. But at this moment, Wang Feng had no choice but to do so. He couldn't even relax. In the empty, radiant paradise, all of the scarlet and green flying swords surged up like a waterfall. Finally, they gathered to form a scarlet and green sword that was several meters long. At this moment, the phantom of the angel god held the angel holy sword in his hand and suddenly slashed down. Several rays of light suddenly flashed in the phantom's eyes. In the next moment, the 250,000 kilograms of scarlet and green flying swords seemed to have frozen the air. The density had reached a limit. Rumble. The two collided. The angel holy sword in the phantom's hand shook violently. The holy sword burst out with violent golden flames and cut the scarlet and green flying swords. It shook into countless Xianming blood dragon thorns. Wang Feng's spiritual power shook. The golden flames of the holy sword were covered with a layer of purified spiritual power. His heart sank slightly. The dark angel martial soul in his sea of consciousness roared again. Under this boundless pressure, Wang Feng's 7 blood traces were boiling hot. It was as if they were about to melt him. The dark angel martial soul was restricted and couldn't be used. But at this moment, Wang Feng felt the 7 blood traces burning under the pressure of the angel god's phantom. An explosive power came from the blood traces. Wang Feng raised his head and looked at the phantom that was slashing down. His pitch-black eyes emitted extreme darkness. The phantom looked into Wang Feng's eyes. It was as if he could see through Wang Feng's eyes and see the dark angel martial soul in his sea of consciousness. There was a moment of hesitation. It was at this moment that Wang Feng's body burned with boiling demonic flames again. He broke free from the golden chains on the cross, stepped on it, and punched at the phantom. The end of the blood traces on his huge fist was condensed with a substantial dark flame aura. He punched the angel holy sword. Oomph! In the next moment, the phantom suddenly retracted the holy sword and let out a loud sound. He also stretched out his arm and formed a fist. The fist burned with golden flame aura and directly collided with Wang Feng's fist. Boom! Under the two enormous forces, endless flame aura erupted and instantly extinguished the surrounding radiant paradise phantom. A trace of surprise flashed in the phantom's eyes. Its huge body was shaken back a little. In the hazy white clouds, a light flashed in its eyes. It stared at Wang Feng's figure, and his figure gradually faded. At the same time, at the moment when the fist collided with the angel god's phantom, endless flame light erupted in the sky. A copious amount of power made Wang Feng feel that he couldn't resist. His whole body flew down from the sky. The strangest thing was that at the moment of collision, The golden flame on the phantom's fist instantly attached to Wang Feng's body. In an instant, it covered the black flame aura burning on his body due to the power of the blood traces. It was incomparably strange. Chapter 904. The scorching power spread throughout his body from the golden flames, but it didn't hurt his body. Instead, it carried a purifying power that devoured and purified the 7 blood patterns on Wang Feng's body. At the same time, the dark angel martial soul in his sea of consciousness was faintly discernible, but it was strangely quiet. Wang Fengxin was shocked. The angel god Shadow didn't slash down with the angelic holy sword, but used a fist to fight with him? Although it was only a shadow, Wang Feng could feel that the opponent's strength far exceeded his current state. If the Dark Path Holy Sword directly slashed down, he would probably be seriously injured. The opponent suddenly stopped and punched down, burning the golden flames on his body. It seemed that he wanted to expel the Dark Angel martial soul from his body. And the power of the blood patterns? What a joke! This thing was painstakingly cultivated by him in the City of Massacre. After that, he had been cultivating and going through a lot. He also devoured a few wisps of power from the Rakshasa god and the sea god to reach his current level. What if it was purified? The golden flames represented the power of extreme yang and began to cover and dissolve the blood patterns on his body. Wang Fengxin's heart gradually became heavy. These flames even passed through his body and burned into his sea of consciousness, burning toward the dark angel martial soul. This thing was the flame of the angel god Shadow. It was the flame of a god. Naturally, it wouldn't be simple. The dark angel martial soul didn't have a soul ring. How could it resist the flame of God? Wang Feng felt that the dark aura in his body seemed to be purified. Under the burning of the golden flames, the 7 blood patterns seemed to have lost their previous power. What was even more terrifying was in his sea of consciousness. Wang Fengxin's heart tightened. The dark angel martial soul was burning with golden flames, but its entire body was pitch black. It looked very strange. It was exactly the same as his current state. If this goes on, my martial soul won't be purified, right? Wang Fengxin was a little speechless. The actions of the angel god Shadow were really too strange. He could have seriously injured him, but he only used a punch to cover himself with the golden flames. His goal seemed to be to purify the power of the blood patterns on his body and the dark angel martial soul. It seemed that the dark angel martial soul was related to the angel god. Enemies? Wang Feng wasn't too sure. The dark angel martial soul was given to him by the system, and he didn't know its origins. He had to rely on himself to activate it. As for the angel god, Wang Feng was even more clueless. After all, he was still a god, and not just any ordinary god, but a god who controlled the power of the sky. The dark angel was bathed in golden flames, just like Wang Feng himself. He was also bathed in the golden flames. F***ck, this won't do. Wang Feng thought to himself, I don't care if you are an enemy or not. You want to purify this dark angel martial soul that I have painstakingly cultivated? Dream on. His powerful will merged with the dark angel martial soul in his sea of consciousness. Wang Feng closed his eyes. Time seemed to have stopped. Wang Feng did not expect that this battle would attract the attention of the angel god's divine will. He had never expected to encounter such a situation. However, the first appearance of the dark angel martial soul seemed to indicate that this was going to happen. The two opposing energies seemed to be mixing, struggling, devouring, and purifying at this moment. Vaguely, Wang Feng felt the dark angel's martial soul grow dimmer and dimmer. However, it didn't roar like before. Instead, it was very quiet. It was as if it already knew its fate. At the same time, under the purification of the golden flames, half of the 7 blood tattoos disappeared. Only the remaining half was still disappearing. However, to Wang Feng's surprise, although the blood tattoos disappeared at the purified end, they turned into golden tattoos. It was extremely strange. F***ck, this angel god. Don't tell me he wants me to inherit his power. Wang Feng quivered. purifying the dark angel martial soul into the six-winged angel martial soul. Did he also take a fancy to me? What's wrong with these gods? They already have inheritors, but they are still half-hearted. Do they want to cultivate two accounts? If one is destroyed, the other can be used as a guarantee. Wang Feng was just guessing, but he felt a little helpless. However, the dark angel martial soul was stronger no matter how he looked at it. He didn't want to be purified like this. Moreover, the dark angel martial soul was only a martial soul after all. Its strength was limited. Wang Feng could even feel that the dark angel martial soul seemed to be devouring and absorbing the golden flames, and the power of the 7 blood tattoos was the same. It was just like when it absorbed the divine power of the Rakshasa deity and the sea god's test. Unfortunately, the flames of this angel phantom were far from simple. It was not as simple as a few strands of divine power. This thing was like the light of the sea god emitted by the sea god himself. It was impossible for a martial soul to absorb it all. But at this moment, in the sea of consciousness, Wang Feng seemed to have thought of something. His spiritual power turned the chaos green lotus and then approached the dark angel martial soul. The moment the light cyan chaos green lotus approached the dark angel martial soul, in an instant, the golden flames paused slightly. Then the chaos green lotus bloomed slightly, illuminating the dark angel martial soul. In the next moment, the dark angel martial soul suddenly burst out with a burst of momentum, and its whole body quickly absorbed the golden flames. Wang Feng was slightly startled. The 3 martial souls in the sea of consciousness had always been in a triangular shape. Wang Feng rarely used his spiritual power to control it in order to avoid accidents. But now it seemed to be quite useful. Under the light of the chaos green lotus, the dark angel martial soul seemed to be able to quickly absorb the special golden flames emitted by the angel god. It could help the dark angel martial soul to absorb it. The chaos green lotus in the sea of consciousness was surrounded by 9 circles, which were the soul rings. At this moment, as the soul rings shone, the dark angel martial soul absorbed the golden flames burning all over its body at an extremely fast speed. In just a moment, the absorption was complete. Wang Feng only felt a pure and holy power rising from the dark angel martial soul. 2 extremely contradictory powers, strong and weak, merged into the dark angel martial soul, causing the originally black light to emit a faint golden glow. Wang Feng was a little dumbfounded. What the hell was this? It was really absorbed? The dark angel martial soul was actually absorbing the power of the angel god? In terms of the form of power, these two were completely independent of each other. The dark angel martial soul represented darkness and depravity, while the angel god emitted the holy power of light. This golden flame was definitely not an ordinary divine power. This represented a special kind of energy that could purify the power of his blood mark. It was obvious. This can be King absorbed. Wang Feng knew that this was probably due to the chaos green lotus. The chaos green lotus was the origin of all things. Although it was only a martial soul, it should not be difficult to help the dark angel martial soul absorb the golden flames. Chapter 905. One had to know that the dark angel martial spirit could also absorb the golden flames. However, it could not absorb so much of it. At this moment, the dark angel martial spirit was still absorbing the energy contained within the golden flames. At the same time, Wang Feng discovered that as the golden flames were absorbed, an extremely strange scene appeared on the 7 blood marks on his body. Half of the purified golden marks and the other half of the blood marks formed 2 opposing energies that interweaved on Wang Feng's body. It emitted a bright and dark aura. A faint green light still enveloped the dark angel martial spirit, causing it to rapidly fuse with the golden flames. Gradually, Wang Feng discovered that the dark angel martial spirit had changed. How should he put it? In his sea of consciousness, the first thing that changed was the black wings behind the dark angel martial spirit. After the 7th blood mark was cultivated, it evolved from 12 wings to 14 wings. It had already reached its limit. However, half of it was now dyed with a faint gold color. It looked incomparably strange. At the same time, even the body of the dark angel martial spirit was intertwined with black and gold. A strange energy was being emitted from the dark angel martial spirit. Could it be that the dark angel martial spirit has really fused with the golden flames? Wang Feng was startled. If such contradictory energies were to fuse, he did not know what kind of changes it would bring to the dark angel martial spirit. Could it be a mutation of the martial spirit? Wang Feng took a deep breath. In an instant, he opened his eyes. The left eye was pitch black, but the right eye was faint gold. At this moment, an illusory figure suddenly erupted from Wang Feng's body. It was not a martial spirit. It was just an illusory figure of an angel formed by leaking energy. However, this illusory figure was emitting an extremely ancient aura. Half of it was faint black, and the other half was faint gold. There was no holy aura, nor was there any light aura. There was only the ancient aura of an angel. Thousand Daos Lu had been watching Wang Feng all along. He had a very clear understanding of the battle. The moment the radiant paradise shattered, the huge illusory figure changed its attack method and punched Wang Feng. Then, Wang Feng's body burned with golden flames. Thousand Daos Lu could clearly see it. Naturally, he knew about that flame. It was the symbol of the angel god, the true sun flame. It could purify and burn all evil and dark things. Clearly, the angel gods divine will have discovered the dark angel martial soul in Wang Feng's body. It believed that it was ominous, so it wanted to use the true sun flame to purify the dark angel martial soul. The Thousand Dao stream felt that this was naturally the best outcome. Because of this kid didn't have any conflicts with Little Snow. Otherwise, when Little Snow became an angel god, how could a person with the dark angel martial soul be together with Little Snow when they had two opposing powers? Although this kid's dark angel martial soul wasn't simple, it was still very powerful. However, the current situation seemed to have completely exceeded the expectations of the Thousand Streams. Looking at the ancient angel on Wang Feng's body that was half black and half gold, the two opposing forces fused together, and an invisible energy surrounded Wang Feng's body. It actually made the Thousand Dao flow have the urge to prostrate themselves in worship. How is this possible? Thousand Dao Lu's body trembled slightly. That feeling was getting stronger and stronger. Even the dark angel Wuhan on this kid's body had only made him a little scared. Perhaps his opponent's martial soul was of a higher quality than his six-winged angel martial soul. But now he actually had the urge to kneel down and prostrate himself in worship. Even when facing the angel god statue, the Thousand Dao stream didn't have such a strong urge. What kind of angel is that? Could it be that this kid's dark angel wasn't purified? The Thousand Dao stream looked at it with a dumbfounded expression. The trembling transmitted from his martial soul to his soul made him slowly kneel down. That kind of intense suppression, it wasn't just a Thousand Dao stream. At this moment, Tang San looked at the illusory figure behind Wang Feng in the air, and the space between his eyebrows trembled. What is that? Tang San looked at it in astonishment. The rest of the people had already climbed down. The great radiant hall pressed down, and a huge aura enveloped the entire place. This kind of deity rank combined with the power of the martial soul and that strange illusory figure of the angel god, even they couldn't withstand it. Tang San knew that the illusory figure was probably a wisp of the angel god's divine will. It was enough to see how powerful this move was. To be able to trigger a wisp of the true god's divine will, it was not weaker than when the illusory figure of the sea god appeared to teach him the 13 golden halberds. Tang San was slightly shocked. Could it be that Brother Feng has also inherited the divine position? But what kind of deity is this? Isn't the divine position of the angel god inherited by Qianren Xue? Back then, on the sea god's island, Qianren Xue crushed the 7 monsters. Tang San remembered very clearly that the Qianren Xue emitted the aura of the angel god. In this world, there couldn't be 2 angel gods. Moreover, Tang San felt that the aura and majesty emitted by the illusory figure of the angel god was even stronger than that of the sea god. What was more strange was that it didn't seem to be the aura of a deity. It was indescribably strange. Tang San felt very strange and puzzled. The Thousand Dao stream was confused and frightened. Wang Feng also didn't know what was going on. He only felt that the dark angel martial soul in his body seemed to have evolved and mutated. After absorbing the golden flame of the angel god, it became another kind of angel martial soul. The 7 blood traces on his body were formed by the intertwining of black and gold. They contained tyrannical power. 1 black and 1 gold in his eyes were like 2 different energy vortexes. They could instantly attract people's attention and make them addicted to the 2 different vortexes. The change seemed to be very big. Wang Feng had never expected such a change. In any case, the dark angel martial soul was not purified, and the power of the 7 blood traces did not disappear. On the contrary, they were much stronger. It seemed that he couldn't control them at will. The dark angel martial soul fell into a state of silence. Then, the illusory figure of the angel martial soul on Wang Feng's body disappeared. The pupils in his eyes returned to normal, and the 7 blood traces on his body dimmed. Wang Feng frowned slightly. He stood on his flying sword and looked at the Thousand Dao stream in the distance. "Old man, what are you doing? Why are you kneeling to me? Even if you lose, you don't have to do this, right?" In the distance, the Thousand Dao stream knelt in the void. When he heard this, he suddenly woke up and stood up. His face was extremely ugly. Just now, he did it subconsciously, under the influence of his martial soul. He couldn't control himself and knelt down. He didn't know what was going on. "Shut up. Do you think I want to kneel? Brat." The Thousand Dao stream was so angry that his face turned red. After thinking for a long time, he sighed and said, "Forget it. I won't make things difficult for you today. You can go now. I wanted to bring you back, but I didn't expect you to be so strong. Even such a powerful move could be neutralized." What was even stranger was that even the angel god's son, True Flame, could not purify this brat's dark angel martial soul. This could only mean that he and Xiao Shui were not fated. As the Thousand Dao stream spoke, he waved at the 5-titled Dalu and turned around. He sighed and said in a voice that only Wang Feng could hear, "Sigh, Xiao Shui's life is tough. She was about to pass the 9th test, but because of someone, she is about to fail. Child, Grandpa will come back to send you off." After saying this, the Thousand Dao stream left quickly. Wang Feng, P.S. It seems to be a little late. Chapter 906. The moment the Thousand Dao flow left, the 5-titled Douluo in the air also dispersed their martial soul fusion skill. As the Thousand Dao flow left, the space finally returned to normal. The 5 of them were still in the air outside the barrier, and they were all in an invincible state. They couldn't move at all unless they dispersed their martial soul fusion skill. The power of their martial souls returned to their bodies. For a moment, they got up from the ground and patted the dust off their bodies. In the distance, Hulaina looked at Wang Feng with a complicated expression and left with the 2-titled Dalu and the law enforcement team. Wang Feng looked at the Thousand Dao flow and cursed the old man in his heart. He must have said something like that. But how could Qianren Xue fail the 9th test? Combined with the appearance of the angel god's shadow and the mutation of his angel martial soul, Wang Feng felt that he might need to make a trip to Martial Spirit City. At this moment, the barrier disappeared. Wang Feng found that the angel martial soul in his sea of consciousness was still unusable. The 7 blood golden patterns on his body were the same. The golden flames were created by the angel god. Under the illumination of the chaotic green lotus, they merged. This means that the angel martial soul can't be used now. Maybe I have to find the Qian Rinxue to know the situation of the angel god. Wang Fengxin thought. The angel martial soul increased his combat strength greatly. If he couldn't use it, he couldn't use the 7 blood golden patterns that he had painstakingly cultivated. This meant that he couldn't use the original Sin's domain. This series of effects was in fact weakening his strength. Wang Feng couldn't accept this. After thinking for a moment, Tang San and the others came over. Brother Feng, what happened just now? Tang San asked tentatively, although the 1,000 Dao flow was beaten away by Wang Feng. The final situation was really confusing. The angel god's shadow that appeared and the angel that appeared on Brother Feng's body were extremely strange. I don't know. Wang Feng shook his head. The ninth soul skill of the 1,000 Dao flow is a divine skill, similar to your golden trident. It combined the opponent's 100,000-year soul skill and other special powers to form a move. I'm considered lucky to be able to receive this attack. The main reason was that the chaotic green lotus could help the dark angel martial soul absorb the golden flames of the angel god. Otherwise, Wang Feng's dark angel martial soul would have been completely purified. Luck. Tang San smiled bitterly. Big Brother Feng, your luck is really strong. I feel that the power of that move is stronger than the other three moves. There's an excess of pressure. That's because he used it in the sky. Wang Feng thought for a moment and said, if you use those three moves on the sea, they would be even more powerful. Furthermore, 1,000 Dao flow's soul power is much stronger than yours. Tang San nodded. Wang Feng, what exactly did that 1,000 Dao flow say to you in the air? Ning Rongrong ran to Wang Feng and asked with a puzzled expression, I feel that this martial spirit palace's 1,000 Dao flow doesn't seem to hate you. Just now, when he asked you to go back, it seemed like he wanted to recruit you. Aren't you a spy and traitor of the martial spirit palace? Also, I remember that day on the Sea God Island. Why did that Qianrenshi want to find? Speaking of this, Ning Rongrong looked at Wang Feng with a puzzled expression. Everyone was stunned and felt that it seemed to be the case. That 1,000 Dao flow seemed to only say that he wanted to capture Wang Feng, but he didn't seem to hate Wang Feng. Wang Feng coughed twice and said, the internal forces of the martial spirit palace are more complicated. The Elder Palace and the Pope Palace are two different forces. I am a spy in the Pope Palace, which is still a threat to the 1,000 Dao flow. I, a big threat, left the Pope Palace, so he couldn't be happier. Why would he hate me? As for that Qianren Xue, of course she wants to kill me. Wang Feng said seriously, I became the white-clothed Pope-Tiff undercover and deceived him, affecting their subsequent plans. She is extremely resentful towards me in her heart, so she naturally wants to find me as soon as possible and cut me into 8 pieces. In this aspect, he is completely different from his grandfather. Is that so? Ning Rongrong nodded, looked at Wang Feng and giggled. Then I was overthinking it. I thought that Qianren Xue wanted to find you and let you go that day. I thought she liked you, and his grandfather wanted to capture you back and make you his grandson-in-law. Wang Feng, that shouldn't be possible. Tang San said, Brother Feng has lost the face of the martial spirit palace, and that 1,000 Dao flow is even more unlikely to do so. It's impossible to recruit Brother Feng, because doing so would cause the martial spirit palace to lose its dignity. It's even more impossible for him to be their grandson-in-law. Bibi Don almost killed Brother Feng in the Great Star Do Forest, so why would he agree to 1,000 Dao flow, recruiting Brother Feng into the martial spirit palace again? I think the 1,000 Dao flow wants to capture Brother Feng and torture him. That's right. Wang Feng nodded. Little San is right. Ning Rongrong nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Let's go back first. Wang Feng looked at the others. We shouldn't stay here for too long, in case the 1,000 Dao flow comes back. They weren't in good condition now. It could be said that they didn't have any advantage in this battle. The strength of the Martial Spirit Alliance wasn't something that a few people could fight against. Captain, how have you survived these past few years? On the way, Ma Hongjun chuckled and asked, It must be hard to be a spy, right? It must be hard to be ordered around by that Pope BB Don, right? You're always on tenterhooks every day. After all, you accidentally leaked it. Yes, it's very hard. It's very tiring. Wang Feng said. Wang Feng wasn't wrong about this. Beside him, Tang Sen also solemnly said, Brother Feng, you've suffered these past few years. It's not hard. It's not hard. Wang Feng coughed a few times. It's okay, Wang Feng. You won't be tired now. Ning Rongrong leaned on Wang Feng's shoulder and said softly, You have us by your side now. Yes, after saying that, Ning Rongrong held Wang Feng's hand and secretly scratched it, blocking Wang Feng's arm in front of her chest. With a red face, she whispered in Wang Feng's ear, I'll make you very comfortable. Cough, cough. Wang Feng looked at Ning Rongrong in surprise. This girl has really grown up. Look at those eyes. They're so tender and beautiful. So pure and innocent. Are you that greedy for my body? Wang Fengxin found it funny. That won't do. I'm not tired enough. The revolution hasn't succeeded yet. Wang Feng said with a heavy face. We still need to work harder. Work harder. Figure out the situation of Qian Rinxue and strive to defeat Bibi Don 1 year later. End everything. That's right. Tang San agreed. The Martial Spirit Alliance's strength is getting stronger and stronger. You've seen the situation today. If this continues, I'm afraid that the two empires and our forces will collapse in at most a year. I have a plan in mind now. When we go back, I'll discuss it with the teachers. If this plan succeeds, we might be able to collapse the Martial Spirit Alliance in one fell swoop. Chapter 907. Hearing this, Wang Feng looked at Tang San with some interest. Little 3 seemed to be a little different. What kind of plan could he have that could destroy the Martial Soul Alliance in one fell swoop? The others were also a little curious, but seeing that Tang San was keeping them in suspense, they didn't ask much. Wang Feng, when we were on the Sea God's Island, did you come to find me at night? Ning Rongrong was not interested in Tang San's plan. At this moment, she only wanted to whisper to Wang Feng. Why do you ask? Wang Feng's arm moved slightly as he felt Ning Rongrong's maturity. He couldn't help but think to himself that Rongrong was getting older and older. Is it because I used the Golden Lotus to heal her injuries and improve her physique when we were on the Sea God's Island? Does the Golden Lotus have such an effect? Although fully activating the Golden Lotus could improve one's physique, it consumed a lot of energy and time. The body of a soul master was different from that of a soul beast. The body of a soul beast was very strong, especially a 10,000-year soul beast. Using the power of the Golden Lotus to heal and transform them, there was no need to worry about their bodies exploding. Although Ning Rongrong was much stronger than ordinary soul masters, she was still a lot stronger than ordinary soul masters. Compared to a soul beast, Wang Feng had to be careful when using the Golden Lotus. If he accidentally used too much of the energy contained in the Golden Lotus, Ning Rongrong wouldn't be able to bear it. Just tell me if you did or not, Ning Rongrong said coquettishly with a red face. She wouldn't say that she often dreamed of herself and Wang Feng doing it at night. Of course not. Wang Feng shook his head. I don't believe you. You must have looked for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have those dreams. As soon as Ning Rongrong said that, she knew that she had let it slip. She couldn't help but punch Wang Feng coquettishly. Rongrong, what dream? But Qinxiang asked curiously. Ma Hongjun chuckled. What else can it be? Rongrong must have missed Captain too much and dreamed of him. Maybe he's still... Pa! As she spoke, Ning Rongrong's face turned even redder. She extended her hand and shot a Zhuge Divine crossbow at Ma Hongjun. However, with Ma Hongjun's current strength, this thing had no effect on him. He stretched out his hand and tried to grab the arrow. However, the next moment, the crossbow bolt suddenly turned around and slipped away from Ma Hongjun's hand like a slippery fish. Then it aimed at Ma Hongjun and stopped in his mouth. Gulp! Ma Hongjun opened his mouth and gulped. He looked at Ning Rongrong and smiled awkwardly. Rongrong. Fourth brother, I was wrong. I apologize to you. Bai Qinxiang also smiled and said reproachfully, You are really something. How can you say this directly? How embarrassing. Ning Rongrong coldly snorted as the crossbow slowly descended. Rongrong, did you learn this move from Captain? Ma Hongjun held the crossbow bolt. How did you do it? Ning Rongrong smiled proudly, using spiritual power to control it. When I used the crossbow bolt just now, Wang Feng used his spiritual power to teach me. He even hid it from me. I didn't control it just now, but I've learned it now. Hearing this, Ma Hongjun understood. Wang Feng nodded slightly, intending to teach Ning Rongrong the method of controlling the psychic energy. He had been researching this spiritual power control technique ever since he entered the extreme north. Then, he slowly became stronger. He had also summarized a detailed set of techniques. He could practice this technique while practicing his spiritual power. However, when he thought about how Wang Feng's Xianming blood dragon spike could transform into countless forms, he was probably the only one. Because the Xianming blood dragon spike was a soul bone, its shape was unique and had a strong connection with Wang Feng. This technique was very helpful to an auxiliary-type soul master like Ning Rongrong. In particular, Ning Rongrong could control it while distracted. In the future, she would be able to fight soul masters who could close in on her. Her spiritual power was also very strong. Wang Feng pointed at Ning Rongrong's forehead and whispered, "You dreamed of me, but it doesn't mean that I came to see you. Your evidence is useless." "I don't care. If I think you came, you must have come." Ning Rongrong acted shamelessly. Wang Feng looked at Ning Rongrong and whispered in her ear, "I did come to see you, and I happened to see you in your dream." Hearing this, Ning Rongrong's face turned red. She whimpered and hung on to Wang Feng's body. "No, you definitely didn't see me. You didn't see me in my dream." Ning Rongrong hammered Wang Feng's chest with her hands. When she felt Wang Feng's arms around her, she slowly relaxed and obediently leaned on his shoulder. "Qinxiang, why don't you let me hug you too?" Ma Hongjun looked at Bai Qinxiang enviously and rubbed his hands together. "I don't want to." Bai Qinxiang blushed and pushed Ma Hongjun away. Oscar laughed out loud. "Fatty, you're trying to force it. How can Qinxiang agree? My Lingqi is better. Let me hug you." Shun Lingqi glared at him and held Oscar's hand. "You're not forcing it, are you? You want to hug me just because you want to?" "No way." Oscar was speechless. On the other side, Xiao Wu smiled and snuggled into Tang San's arms. "Brother, I'll let you hug me. They're so jealous." Xiao Wu wrapped her arms around Tang San's neck, which made Tang San blush. However, looking at Ning Rongrong and Feng Feng's smiling faces, Tang San sighed. "I don't know how Feng Feng survived in the Martial Spear Hall all these years. It must have been hard for him. He must have recognized Hu Liena when he was in the City of Massacre. At that time, he must have planned to infiltrate the Martial Spirit Hall." Thinking back, Tang San sighed. He thought of going undercover in the Martial Spear Hall at that time, and he succeeded in the end. It was incredible. In this world, Feng Feng was probably the only one who could do it. Yes, Xiao Wu recalled the time in the Great Star Doe Forest when they were attacked by the ghost Douluo at a critical moment. It's impossible for others to succeed, and it's impossible to replicate. Tang Xin smiled and said, "No one in this world can be as powerful as Feng Feng. Now that he's back, I don't think he'll leave." The group rushed back to Heaven-Do City. With their speed, they arrived at Heaven-Do City in less than an hour. They didn't go back to the Shrek Academy first. Instead, they went back to the Tang sect. The Tang sect scale was comparable to the Blue Lightning Overlord sect and the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile sect. In just a few years, they had the support of the two sects and the Heaven-Do Empire's imperial family. The Tang sect's hidden weapons had made a name for themselves on the continent. However, the Tang sect's hidden weapons weren't sold casually. They were sold at high prices, and the Tang sect friendship was required to sell them. The Heaven-Do Empire was the biggest buyer of the Tang sect's hidden weapons. Chapter 908. However, the Tang sect's hidden weapons were severely restricted. This was because most of the regions belonged to the Martial Soul Alliance. Even the most famous blacksmith city, the capital of Heptagold, belonged to the Martial Spirit Alliance. The materials needed for the Tang sect's hidden weapons were all found by the disciples of the Tang sect's Agile Hall. After returning to the Tang sect, the teachers of the Shrek Academy, the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile sect, and the Blue Lightning Overlord sect quickly gathered in the Tang sect. I didn't introduce the four hall masters to you before. In the Tang sect's main hall, Tang San smiled at Tai Tan, Niu Gao, Yang Wudi, and Bai He. The four of them used to be single attribute masters. After joining the Tang sect, they became the hall masters of the Tang sect's 4 halls. Back then, Tangsen had spent a lot of effort to convince them to join the Tang sect willingly. Several years had passed, but the 4 hall masters didn't look much older. This is the Tang sect's Grand Elder. Tangsen pointed at Wang Feng and smiled. When the Tang sect was established several years ago, Brother Feng wasn't here. Now that he's back, he'll be the Tang sect's only Grand Elder. In the Tang sect's main hall, besides the 4 elders, there were many elite disciples who had just joined the Tang sect in recent years. They all looked curiously at the young sect master and the great elder of the Tang sect. The Tang sect had developed rapidly in the past few years, but most of them were students who had graduated from the Shrek Academy. Although Tangsen wasn't here, they still knew about him. After all, they had all come because of Tangsan's fame as the Shrek's 7 monsters. However, he wasn't too sure about the mysterious great elder of the Tang sect. Not to mention the elite disciples. Even the 4 hall leaders exchanged glances with one another and glanced at Wang Feng with a confused expression. He, the sect master, they don't know much about the captain. Ma Hongjun laughed. Why don't you tell them about the captain's glorious deeds? Wang Feng coughed a few times. At that moment, several voices came from outside. I heard that Wang Feng is back. A refined voice sounded from outside. Before San could make the introduction, he exchanged a look with Wang Feng and then looked outside. Outside the house, Ning Fengji was dressed in white and looked very elegant. Other than the white hair on his temples, he still looked very young. The sword Douluo and the bone Douluo followed behind him. Ha! I didn't believe you when you sent someone to report to me. Come, let me see where that brat Wang Feng is. He fought with me more than 3 years ago, and then disappeared. Yu Yuanjin's loud voice rang out from outside the house. On the way back, Tang San went to report to the humans from the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile sect and the Blue Lightning Tyrant sect. Beside Yu Yuanjin were the Master, Lu Erlong, Flinder, Zhao Wuji, and other teachers from the Shrek Academy. They all looked surprised. On the other side, Douluo hurriedly rushed in through the door. Little monster, little madman, I heard that you're back. Let me see what you've become after disappearing for so many years. 3 groups of people walked in from outside the Tang sect's gate, adding to the liveliness of the Tang sect. However, after so many years, they still had smiles on their faces. There was a hint of worry between their brows. Clearly, these years hadn't been smooth sailing. Under the pressure of the Martial Soul Alliance, even the 2 empires hadn't been doing well. Tang San, Xiao Wu, and several hall masters of the Tang sect walked out and welcomed them with smiles. Little monster, you're more mature and handsome than 3 years ago. Douluo looked at Tang San and smiled even more. Even I can't see through you. Douluo had broken through 1 rank in the past 3 years and reached rank 95. He could be considered a transcendent Douluo. At his level, it was almost impossible for his soul power to improve. However, it wasn't easy for him to break through 1 rank in 3 years. However, when he sensed Tang San in front of him, he felt as if there was a layer of faint blue light around him. He couldn't sense anything. Tang San, I haven't seen you in 3 years. Don't tell me you've already become a titled Douluo? The sword Douluo stared at Tang San and said. As soon as he said this, countless gazes were stunned. Among them, the one with the highest cultivation was naturally the sword Douluo, rank 97 titled Douluo. However, he couldn't see through Tang San at this moment. It could only mean that Tang San's level had reached a very high level. Impossible. When he left, he was only rank 60. 3 years later, rank 30. This. Lu Erlong nudged the master. The master was silent. He just looked at his most outstanding disciple quietly. Tang San took the lead to walk in front of the master and said respectfully, Teacher, I didn't disappoint you. I've indeed crossed that threshold. I've become a titled Douluo. Xiao Wu, I've also been resurrected. Everyone exclaimed when they heard that. The 4 hall masters of the Tang sect were the most shocked and pleasantly surprised. The sect master had become a titled Douluo? What kind of talent and strength was this? A titled Douluo in his 20s, there was probably no one in the entire Douluo continent, right? Wang Fengxian thought that this was an opportunity. When Tang San came out of the Sea God's Island, he was only rank 80. However, Deming's sacrifice made him directly become a titled Douluo. It wasn't like fighting a million-year soul beast directly, and it was so difficult and dangerous. Teacher, it's not just third brother. We've all reached rank 80. Ma Hongjun and the others also walked over and chuckled. When we came back a few days ago, none of you were in the academy. I heard from the disciples that all of you went to the setting sun forest. What? Flinder walked over and stared at Ma Hongjun with his round eyes. His voice was still trembling. Fatty, you've really reached rank 80? As his only direct disciple, Flinder didn't expect Ma Hongjun to jump more than 20 ranks in just 3 years. He had become a soul Douluo. Dean, we might be at a higher level now. Oscar also walked over with Shun Lingqi with a smile. We're all around rank 82 now. Zhu Qing is a little higher at rank 84. When Little 3 left the Sea God's Island with us, he was rank 85. Among the 9 of them, except for Shun Lingqi and Bai Qinxiang, who weren't Soldo yet, the rest had become Soldo. Bai Qinxiang was now over rank 70, and Shun Lingqi was over rank 60. She was close to rank 70. In fact, Shun Lingqi had improved the most because her level when she entered the Sea God's Island was very low. Therefore, she had improved the most. Flinder. The teachers looked at each other. Looking at the group of people, they all sighed in disbelief. The student had surpassed the master. Chapter 909. We're really old. Flinder looked at Ma Hongjun with a gratified expression. Your soul power has completely surpassed ours. Bai He, the hall master of the Tang Sect's Nimble Hall, looked at his granddaughter with a gratified expression. Ma Hongjun and the others had just returned, and they hadn't even met Grandmaster yet. Along the way, they had asked around about the Martial Soul Alliance and heard about the situation in the academy. They hadn't even rested for a day or two before they rushed to take back the soul hunting forest. It could be said that they hadn't even returned to report. The Sea God's Island can actually help you improve so much. Grandmaster exclaimed. It's really a magical place. It's indeed incredible. Ning Fengji glanced at everyone. The Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo had heard of the Sea God's Island before, but it was really terrifying to be able to help a soul master improve so much in just 3 years. Dad, it's all thanks to Wang Feng. Ning Rongrong let go of Wang Feng's hand and ran to Ning Fengji excitedly. Before she came back, she had written a letter to her family in advance. Although they didn't see it, Ning Fengji and the others knew that Ning Rongrong was back. Wang Feng. Ning Fengji's gaze landed on a young man behind Tang San, who was so handsome that it made him sigh in amazement. He was just wearing an ordinary black robe and had a smile on his face. You're Wang Feng. Ning Fengji looked at Wang Feng and rubbed his eyes. Really? Doesn't Wang Feng like to wear a mask? Indeed, when Wang Feng appeared 3 years ago, he also wore a mask. No, that's not right. Why do I feel that your appearance resembles that of the Pope? Flinder looked suspiciously at Wang Feng, his face darkening. Back then, it was the Pope in white who disguised himself as Wang Feng. I can still clearly remember his appearance. Ning Fengji was stunned when he heard this. He looked at Wang Feng again. In an instant, the Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo released their powerful auras and stared at Wang Feng. They remembered clearly how White Pope Tiff had pretended to be Wang Feng and attacked the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile sect. At this moment, when Flinder mentioned it, he suddenly recalled that the white-clothed Pope Tiff, whom he had only met once and had revealed his true appearance once, wasn't it this young man before him? The auras of the 2 titled Douluo filled the entire courtyard, and the 4 hall masters were extremely alert. For a time, everyone was jittery, and every bush and tree was an enemy. The name of the white-clothed Pope was something that none of the people present would ever forget. However, Wang Feng only smiled and slightly released his aura. That supreme aura, which seemed to be one with heaven and earth, instantly dispelled the auras of the two titled Douluo. With his current dustless glass body, after being washed by the primal chaos divine light, it had reached a terrifying level. Otherwise, Long Xia wouldn't have asked him to become the king of soul beasts. With his aura, most soul beasts would reject him or even try to get close to him. It was a kind of aura that was in harmony with nature. Any kind of pressure seemed to be insignificant in front of Wang Feng, unable to form any pressure. Everyone present was instantly affected by this aura. The two titled Douluo even lost their desire to attack. They couldn't help but be shocked. Wang Feng rarely released his aura. He had no choice. He was already so handsome. If he released his aura, it would be too eye-catching. Aya! Ning Rongrong looked at Wang Feng. Her face was red, and her eyes seemed to overflow with tears. Grandpa Jian, Grandpa Gu. White Popetiff is Wang Feng. He wasn't an imposter back then. He's the real person. After hearing this, everyone fell silent. Their minds went blank. What does that mean? They didn't react. However, Master seemed to have thought of something. He looked at Wang Feng in shock. Brother Feng entered the martial spirit palace as a spy a long time ago. When Tang San felt this aura, he was secretly shocked. This aura seemed to be a bit more unique than the vast aura of the sea god. However, he smiled and said, later on, Big Brother Feng became the Pope of the White Clothed. So, the Pope of the White Clothed has always been Big Brother Feng. Speaking of this, Tang San was also secretly laughing. Brother Feng must have been ordered by the BB Don to pretend to be himself as the White Popetiff. He was acting as himself. No wonder he could act so well. They were all fooled. When everyone heard this, their jaws dropped to the ground. How is this possible? Douluo couldn't help but curse. Little lunatic, is it true? The one who defeated me with a flying sword in the martial spirit palace in Heavendo City was really you? Wang Feng smiled and nodded. Immediately after, Wang Feng's mind moved, and a scarlet-green sword light suddenly condensed from his body. With a swoosh, it floated in the air. F***CK, this is the feeling. Douluo quivered. You little lunatic, you're quite good at acting. Even those people from the martial spirit palace were fooled. Even we didn't notice it. The others also looked at each other and looked at Wang Feng in shock. Of course, Ning Rongrong giggled. Looking at the surprised look on everyone's face, she felt honored, especially when her father was also looking at her in shock. It made her very happy. If even you couldn't be fooled, then Wang Feng would have been exposed long ago. Ning Rongrong walked to Wang Feng's side and thought, fortunately, Shuiqing isn't here now. Wang Feng is mine alone. If that's the case, don't tell me that you were the one who gave us the news back at the Seven Treasures Glaze sect? Ning Fengji recalled and was speechless. I was wondering how it could be so coincidental that Wang Feng could give us such important news at such a critical moment. No wonder the Martial Spirit Palace's operations were all ruined by you. Ning Fengji shook his head, shock still lingering on his face. So you're the white-robed Popetiff. The Martial Spirit Palace's operations couldn't be hidden from you at all. So, the Sword Douluo frowned slightly and stared at Wang Feng. When we were at Vast Sea City, I fought with the white-robed Popetiff and used it to break through. You didn't do it on purpose, did you? Wang Feng nodded. I sensed your aura at that time and thought you were at the pinnacle of rank 96, so I fought with you. You should be able to break through, so I did it. Hearing this, the Sword Douluo's expression changed. In the end, he shook his head with a wry smile. You little brat, Old Poison and I thought we had tricked you. I didn't expect you to have guessed it long ago. Tang San and the others were also stunned. They recalled that when they intercepted the wolf bandits, it was indeed the case. At that time, they were still complacent and thought they had tricked the white-robed Popetiff, but now the truth was revealed. However, Ma Hongjuan's heart skipped a beat. He remembered that several flying swords attacked him and Bai Qinxiang at that time. It allowed his relationship with Bai Qinxiang to reach a higher level in the midst of a crisis. At that time, it was very critical. At that time, he was still glad. Captain, you're too awesome. You even assisted me at that time? Ma Hongjun quivered. It seems that Captain's flirting skills are far superior to mine. P.S. 3 more updates. Now that he thought about it, the more Ma Hongjun thought about it, the more surprised he was. Chapter 9-10. He wasn't the only one. Everyone else was also shocked when they recalled what had happened. They were amazed that Wang Feng could easily use the identity of the white-clothed Pope Tiff and infiltrate the martial spirit palace without giving himself away. We were able to improve so much on the Sea God's Island this time. It's all thanks to Brother Feng, Tang Xin said solemnly. In fact, it was the other 7 monsters who had improved more. Under the pressure of passing through the light of the Sea God in the first test, their potential was squeezed out to the fullest extent. This led to a huge improvement for them in the next few tests. Otherwise, it would be impossible for those low-level ones to break through to the Soul Douluo level. However, Tang Xin didn't explain in detail about the Sea God's Island. The Sea God's Island had a rule that nothing could be revealed to the outside world. As the successor of the Sea God, Tang Xin didn't want to break the rules of the Sea God's Island. Of course, although Ning Rongrong looked happy, she pouted and said, "But at that time, we were destroyed by Wang Feng. Dad, you don't know. I hated that white-clothed Pope Tiff to death at that time. Only by suffering can one rise above others," Ning Fengji said. "If it weren't for Wang Feng's destruction, not to mention Tang San, you might not be able to break through to the Soul Douluo level now." Ning Rongrong giggled. She thought to herself, Zhu Qing was the calmest at that time. She must have discovered it long ago. But how did Zhu Qing discover it before me? Ning Rongrong had been thinking about this question for a long time, but she couldn't figure it out. Rongrong was just complaining, Tang Xin said with a smile. In fact, she gritted her teeth and didn't think of giving up at all. Wang Feng nodded slightly. Rongrong's personality was like this. She was soft on the outside, but strong on the inside. It was impossible for her to give up. She said it was possible, but she couldn't. She was so angry. In fact, she was very determined. So, today I officially announced that Brother Feng is the great elder of the Tang sect. Tang Xin looked at the 4 hall masters and the many elite disciples. Bai He and the other hall masters naturally did not dare to object. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the other party's strength and identity were second to none in the entire continent. Tang Xin hadn't told them what had happened on the Sea God's Island. "Little Feng, since you've come back this time." Ning Fengji looked at Wang Feng, coughed a few times, and said, "Then how do you plan to explain to me about Rongrong? You guys aren't young anymore." Wang Feng, "Oh, Dad, 3rd brother called you here for something else." Ning Rongrong blushed as she looked at Wang Feng. "Why are you talking about this now?" "Then I'll have to ask him." Ning Fengji smiled. "Feng, when do you plan to give me an answer?" "I'll give it to you next time," Wang Feng said. "When is the next time?" Ning Fengji asked. Logically speaking, now that Wang Feng was so outstanding, Ning Fengji felt that his precious daughter was not worthy of him. What should he do? In the beginning, Ning Fengji had agreed to this matter with both hands and feet. But now, Ning Fengji was most worried that this huge gap would make it difficult for the 2 of them to be together in the future. The strong usually had to reach a higher realm. Ning Fengji could not guess the upper limit of someone like Wang Feng. Even for someone like Tang San, Ning Fengji could not imagine the upper limit. But his daughter's upper limit was to become a titled Douluo. How could she keep up with his footsteps? If she couldn't, she would either be a widow and wait bitterly, or she would leave quietly. Regardless of which, Ning Fengji did not want his precious daughter to suffer. This kind of worry made Ning Fengji want to get an answer from Wang Feng. In fact, even if he got an answer, Ning Fengji felt that they could not escape from these 2 outcomes. 1 year later, Wang Feng said slowly. 1 year later, I'll give you an answer, Rongrong. Wang Feng knew Ning Fengji's concerns. It was also his own concern. Okay. Ning Fengji nodded slightly. 1 year was very short. Now that the Martial Soul Alliance was imminent, they might not be able to last a year. But now, Tang San and Wang Feng had returned. It was not impossible to break the current situation. As for why it was 1 year, Ning Fengji did not know and did not want to ask. But when Ning Rongrong heard this, She looked at Wang Feng in surprise. Is he going to marry me in a year? Ning Rongrong lowered her head, and her mind was filled with longing. At this moment, Tang San's expression turned serious. Everyone, let's move to the side hall. I have something important to discuss with all of you. Everyone nodded slightly and followed Tang San into the main hall of the Tang sect. Little 3, you're back. I'm sure you know the current situation of the Martial Soul Alliance. Dugabo sighed. This time, the Martial Soul Alliance's decision was extremely correct. Before the Snowy Night Emperor died, he lamented that there was no way to break Pope Bibidon's move. The most important thing is that the Martial Soul Alliance has a righteous cause. Righteousness was the most important thing to countless people in power. Waging war and raising the flag of rebellion required righteousness. But it was clear that the Martial Soul Hall, which established the Wuhan Alliance, had a righteous cause. The purpose of the alliance was to promote the development of the world of soul masters and promote the progress of the continent. If you did not join, you would be obstructing the progress of the world of soul masters and the continent's progress and development. It was fine if you did not join, but you would also enjoy the benefits bestowed by the Martial Soul Alliance. They used a slow and steady method to absorb the strength and territory of the two empires. The Martial Soul Hall's strength surpassed the two empires in all aspects. I know this. Tang Sen pondered for a moment, then looked at Wang Feng. But this is where the Martial Soul Alliance's ambition lies. They want to unify the continent. Actually, if it was another power that wanted to unify the continent, it would be different. Maybe it's like what Brother Feng said that day. The benefits of unifying the continent outweigh the disadvantages. The Tang sect and I will not participate in the struggle. But the Martial Soul Hall can't. Bibidon can't. Tang San's voice was very firm. If they were to unify the continent, with Bibidon's ambition, it would be difficult for us to have any space to live. Wang Fengxin thought that this was the knowledge brought about by hatred. There was nothing he could do about it. Actually, if he defeated Bibidon, then what Tang San said would not exist. However, what Little 3 cared about the most was hatred. There was hatred for Xiao Wu, his mother, and Xiao Wu's mother. This might not be related to Bibidon, but it was closely related to the Martial Soul Hall. Chapter 911. My opinion carries some personal hatred, Tang San said in a deep voice. But no matter what, I will never agree to the Martial Soul Hall unifying the continent. They are definitely not kind. Everyone nodded slightly. It was not like they had never been persecuted by the Martial Soul Hall. Little San, just say what you think. The master sighed softly. Tang San nodded heavily, and a smile appeared on his face. Although the Martial Soul Alliance is in the right. However, do you all know who the Martial Soul Alliance wants in the end? As soon as Tang San finished speaking, Ma Hongjun answered, Who else can it be? Of course, it's that Pope Bibidon. That's right. Tang San smiled faintly. But what if this Pope Bibidon is already dead? Or is he not far from death? As soon as he finished speaking, the entire hall suddenly fell silent. Wang Feng, his heart skipped a beat. He roughly knew what Tang San was thinking. That's impossible, right? The sword Douluo was in disbelief. Tang San, don't talk nonsense. Do you know how terrifying Bibidon's strength is? As a rank 90 title Douluo, he had a clear understanding of Bibidon's aura. It was already beyond the scope of a soul master. How could he die? Grandpa Jian, I'm not talking nonsense. Xiao Wu smiled mischievously. That Bibidon might really be dead. Even if he's not dead, he's definitely not far from death. This happened in the Great Stardow Forest before we came back. Then, Tang San and Xiao were recounted what happened in the Great Stardow Forest. At that time, Brother Feng was absorbing the soul ring. Tang San's eyes flashed. He didn't know anything about it. That Bibidon faked his death to escape Brother Feng's detection. When Brother Feng was absorbing the soul ring, he was about to attack. But I used my strongest move at that time to pierce through his body. Even if he's the successor of the Rakshasa deity position, it's not impossible for him to survive that situation. After hearing this, everyone fell silent. Rakshasa deity position million-year soul beast, these words sounded a little distant. However, Wang Feng sighed inwardly. In fact, Tang San's idea was correct. Even BB Don wouldn't be able to survive under such circumstances. At that time, Big Brother Feng was still absorbing the soul ring, so he probably didn't know. Tang San smiled. Even with Big Brother Feng's strength, it's impossible for him to absorb that kind of soul ring in a short period of time. That's why you don't know that I lured those 4 titled Douluo away. When the 4 titled Douluo were chasing me, their faces were ashen, and they were extremely furious. They didn't think that BB Don was still alive. Otherwise, they wouldn't have pursued us like this. Then how did you escape? The Sword Douluo asked. The Chrysanthemum Douluo and the Ghost Douluo all possess martial soul fusion skills. You use such a powerful move, it shouldn't be difficult for them to catch you. Upon hearing this, Tang San smiled again. Actually, it was a little difficult for me to run at that time. They chased me for at least 2 days. I didn't even have time to recover. But when they caught up to me, they were beaten back by someone. Hearing this, Wang Fengxin's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? It's the King of Massacre. Tang San said a name that shocked everyone. At that time, the King of Massacre wanted to kill me. His situation was very strange, so I had to use the light of the sea god to stop him. However, after being corroded by the light of the sea god, he actually recovered his original appearance. Maybe you all don't know who he is. After he recovered his original appearance, he instantly beat back the 4 titled Douluo. At this point, a look of shock appeared on Tang San's face. Everyone was extremely curious. The King of Massacre? Isn't that the leader of the capital of Massacre? Why would he want to kill Tang San, who passed the capital of Massacre's test? Who could it be if he recovered his original appearance? It's your grandfather, Tang Chun, right? Wang Feng said. Tang San's face stiffened, and he looked at Wang Feng in disbelief. Brother Feng, how did you know? I guessed. Wang Feng shook his head and said, in this world, even a rank 98 titled Douluo might not be able to beat back the 4 titled Douluo in an instant. That it can only be a rank 99 titled Douluo. And I've also been to the capital of Massacre, and I felt that this King of Massacre was a little different. Everyone understood. In this world, there are only 3 ultimate Douluo. That's right, Tang San said with a smile. This King of Massacre is my great-grandfather, Tang Chun. There are many twists and turns, and I'll tell you all in detail when the time comes. Because of this, I completely withdrew at that time. So, I'm sure that there's a 99% chance that BB Don is already dead, Tang San said in a low voice. If he's not dead, I think he's not far from death. In this world, there is no one who could save the heir of a god. Moreover, he has twin martial souls, and his strength is above rank 99 BB Don. After listening to Tang San's words, everyone looked a little excited. If this was true, the Martial Spirit Alliance would definitely collapse. For a moment, Wang Feng didn't know what to say. Tell Tang San that BB Don is actually not dead? Your big brother Feng, save him? Don't be delusional. Wang Fengxin secretly shook his head. He suspected that even if he said it now, Tang San and the others might not believe him. And it would be more troublesome if he said it. There are many things that couldn't be explained clearly. But if BB Don is dead, why is there no news from the Martial Spirit Alliance? Ma Hongjun said doubtfully. Ha ha ha, this is normal. Ning Fengji laughed and said, if such an important person dies, the Martial Spirit Alliance will definitely be in chaos. The higher-ups of the Martial Spirit Alliance will definitely keep this a secret. They might even ask someone to pretend to be BB Don. This kind of thing has happened before in the history of the continent. Ma Hongju nodded. What if BB Don isn't dead? Wang Feng asked. Little San, you didn't see BB Don really die. Tang San said, so I can only say that there's a 99% chance that she is dead. If she is really not dead, then she must be in an extremely weak state now, and it will be difficult for her to control the situation of the Martial Spirit Alliance. If she is not dead, nor is she weak or seriously injured, then I believe that I wouldn't have been able to walk out of the Great Star Do Forest alive. The reason why Tang San was so confident was because it was a divine skill. For a demigod like BB Dawn, a divine skill could definitely kill her. As for other soul skills, even if Bibidon's body was destroyed, she could rely on soul skills to recover. But divine skills were the power of a god, and there was no chance of recovery. Moreover, I have another way to verify whether BB Dawn is dead or not. Tang San's eyes flashed. This is also my next plan. Everyone listened intently. Chapter 9:12. Hearing this, Wang Feng frowned slightly and seemed to have guessed something. Brother Feng, have you guessed something? Tang San looked at Wang Feng and suddenly said, why don't the two of us write down our thoughts on our hands and then spread them out to see if it's the same? Wang Feng, why, little San, are you also playing the trick of writing with Zhuge Liang and Zhou Yu's palms? Wang Feng smiled and didn't refuse. Everyone was a little curious. The two of them clenched their fists and directly condensed a few words in their hands with their soul power. Then they spread out their hands. Everyone focused their eyes and saw that there were 4 words. Join the alliance. Seeing this, Tang San laughed a few times. Brother Feng is the only one who knows me. Xiao Wu said jealously. Brother, I know you too. Tang San coughed a few times and said, Xiao Wu, that's not what I meant. Xiao Wu snorted. Wang Feng was silent. Everyone was silent. Join the alliance? Master looked at Tang San, his eyes flickering. He couldn't see through his disciples' thoughts more and more. That's right, Tang San said slowly. The Martial Spirit Alliance has a righteous reason. It's difficult for us to fight back with this method of boiling the frog in warm water. Even if we start a war, we may not be able to defeat the Martial Spirit Alliance, which has at least 100,000 soul masters. Everyone nodded. All this time, we've been trying to break up and defeat the Martial Spirit Alliance. Tang San's eyes flashed. But the best result is nothing more than a lose-lose situation. On the way back, I thought of Brother Feng's undercover. I think Brother Feng wants to go undercover in the Martial Spirit Palace. He should have a more noble purpose, not just be a spy. Wang Fengxin thought. What other noble purpose do I have? Why don't I know it myself? Everyone looked at Tang San, puzzled and puzzled. Brother Feng can actually think of my idea. This proves that he must have a more noble purpose. Tang San continued. Third brother, what is his purpose? Ma Hongjun was curious, as if a cat was scratching his head. It's simple. Tang San looked at Wang Feng with admiration in his eyes. Brother Feng infiltrated the Martial Spirit Palace as a spy. I think his ultimate goal is to change the Martial Spirit Palace. To change the deformed Martial Spirit Palace under the influence of BB Dawn. Thus, we will be able to save millions of soul masters. Wang Feng, did I have such a noble purpose? Wang Feng thought to himself. When he had joined the Martial Spirit Palace as a spy, perhaps he had such thoughts deep down in his heart. Wang Feng asked himself in his heart, how many? However, back then, Wang Feng only wanted to destroy Bibidon's godly seed inheritance. In fact, he did have such intentions. Without the inheritance of BB Dawn, her influence on the Martial Spirit Palace would be greatly reduced. He was the White Pope Tiff, and the next successor was Hulaina. It was too easy for him to change the Martial Spirit Palace. But Big Brother Feng failed. That BB Dawn is indeed very strong. He almost killed Big Brother Feng on the Sea God Island. Tang San sighed. But now BB Dawn is dead. The Martial Spirit Alliance has no leader. With the strength of us and the 2 empires, as long as we join the Martial Spirit Alliance, it will be easy to change the Martial Spirit Alliance. I can't accept the Martial Spirit Palace unifying the continent, but I can accept the Martial Spirit Alliance being changed by us and truly unifying the continent. Tang San finally revealed his ultimate goal. This was the result of Tang San's long consideration. Although he was very BB Dawn, the Martial Spirit Palace. But now that the enemy was dead, was the Martial Spirit Palace really going to be destroyed? What good would it do if it was destroyed? Tang San couldn't help but think of the 3 members of the Golden Generation who had slaughtered the wolf bandits with them that day in Vast Sea City. As the Golden Generation of the Martial Spirit Palace, They could definitely represent the majority of the younger generation of the martial spirit palace. Facing those ferocious wolf bandits, they spared no effort to kill them. This proved that they also advocated justice and order. Later on, the three members of the Golden Generation could even gain the recognition of the sea god. This proved that they were not evil in their hearts. And as the Holy Lady, Hulaina actually let them go on the coastline. It had to be said that this was definitely Brother Feng's influence. What did this mean? It meant that Brother Feng was very useful as a spy in the Martial Spirit Palace. At least, he had changed some of the people in the Martial Spirit Palace. In other words, the Martial Spirit Palace was not all bad. There were so many titled Douluo, and they were nothing more than forced by Bibidan's despotic power and orders. Now that Bibidan was dead, Tang San's brain could be said to be extremely calm. At this moment, everyone was shocked by this thought. Wang Feng was not shocked. He had indeed guessed the opposite of Tang San. According to his understanding of Little 3 in the current situation, he had deduced. When Tang San learned that Bibidan was dead, his hatred had mostly disappeared. Then, he might not really want to face the Martial Spirit Alliance head-on, not to mention how difficult it would be. Although Bibidan was dead, there were countless soul masters in the Martial Spirit Alliance. It was impossible to face them head-on. Therefore, with Tang San's intelligence and his experience as a spy, it was best to disintegrate them from the inside. Everyone was obviously shocked by Tang San and Wang Feng's thoughts. They were so shocked that they were completely speechless. It was a bold idea, but it seemed to be quite reasonable. Bibidan is dead, but what about the Thousand Dao sect? Sword Douluo asked in a low voice. Bibidan is dead, but the Thousand Dao sect is still there. Thousand Dao sect? Tang San smiled. Brother Feng's strength is even stronger than the Thousand Dao sect. Of course, you should not know yet. How do we come back today? As he spoke, Tang San gave Oscar, who was beside him, a look. Oscar told them about the situation in the soul-hunting forest outside Heavendo City. After that, everyone was shocked again. He defeated the Thousand Dao sect. Gu Rong looked at Wang Feng crazily. How is this possible? What kind of strength was the Thousand Dao sect? He was one of the top 3 titled Douluo in the world. How could he defeat him? To be precise, it was the Thousand Dao sect and 5 titled Douluo. Oscar added, those 5 titled Douluo used a powerful 5-in-1 fusion skill to seal our martial souls and soul power. Even at that level, Captain can still defeat the Thousand Dao sect. So, we don't have to be afraid of the Thousand Dao sect at all. Even if a few more titled Douluo come, they won't be a match for Captain. Hearing this, everyone was petrified again. On one hand, it was because of this idea, and on the other hand, it was because of Wang Feng's strength. He seemed to be so strong that it was unimaginable. Little San, how do you want to change the Martial Spirit Alliance? So what if we change it? Who's going to be the leader? Ning Fengji asked solemnly. After thinking about it in his heart, he was surprised to find that Tang San and Wang Feng's idea was extremely wonderful. It could even achieve the most perfect result with the least loss. It's very simple. Tang San smiled and looked at Wang Feng. Have you forgotten that Brother Feng is the white Pope Diff of the Martial Spirit Hall? Not many people in the Martial Spirit Hall know this secret. The Martial Spirit Hall did not publicize it. Most importantly, Brother Feng's charisma. So, if we want to do this, we only need to rely on Brother Feng. As for the leader, Brother Feng, who has the identity of the white Pope Diff and is the most powerful, naturally the only choice. After that, the entire hall fell silent. Swish, swish, swish. Everyone's eyes fell on Wang Feng. Wang Feng, although it's a little late, I still want to ask for votes. Chapter 9:13. From Tang San's point of view, this was a good idea. Under the circumstances that Bibi Dong was dead, joining the Martial Soul Alliance, reforming it, and using Wang Feng's strength and status, he could stabilize the Martial Soul Alliance. From there, he could change the entire Martial Soul Alliance. He could even make the Martial Soul Alliance truly unify the entire continent. Because of that condition, among Shrek's 7 monsters, Dai Mubai and Zhu Zhuqing represented the Star Luo Empire. Tang San and the others represented the Heaven Do Empire. With Wang Feng as the leader, they could join the Martial Soul Alliance. With Wang Feng's identity as white-clothed Pope Tiff, he could reduce the resistance to the reformation of the Martial Soul Alliance. Who would dare to refuse Wang Feng's white-clothed Pope Tiff's reputation and strength in the Martial Soul Hall? In addition, even the Thousand Dao sect was no match for Wang Feng. The elders of the Elder Hall, the titled Douluo of the Pope's Palace, and the cardinals who used to rely on BB Don, who would dare to refuse? As for Wang Feng's identity as a spy, difficult to convince the public? This was the best opportunity. That's easier to solve. Tang Sen looked at Wang Feng. Brother Feng is not a spy. In fact, he deliberately betrayed us to persuade us to join the Martial Soul Alliance. This way, the people of the Martial Soul Alliance will agree with him. They'll approve and support Big Brother Feng even more. Good idea, Wang Feng said. Little San, you found an excuse for me. Everyone listened and thought for a while. They wanted to confirm the feasibility of this method. Wang Feng was also shocked. Little San's idea was really good, although he was the one who didn't want to be the boss the most. But for now, maybe he could force it, Wang Feng was also thinking. Because he had already guessed Tang San's idea, he was not as shocked as the others. If BB Don was dead, it could be done. It could also avoid fighting to the greatest extent. Of course, it might affect the 3 forces, the stubborn conservative forces of the 2 empires, and the Martial Soul Alliance, but these were only a small part of the voices. After all, there wouldn't be an idea that everyone would be satisfied with. However, this method was definitely something that the majority of people would approve of. It had to be known that the disciples of the 2 empires, as well as the various large sects and academies, weren't against joining the Martial Spirit Alliance. In fact, there was even some yearning in his heart. The student Wang Feng met at Shrek Academy today was a good example. Therefore, it might not be a bad thing for Tang San to bring everyone to join the Martial Soul Alliance. However, BB Don is not dead. This plan was destined to be difficult to achieve. Unless he could convince BB Don, then the problem would return to whether he could defeat BB Don a year later. Moreover, if Tang San knew that BB Don was not dead, he would definitely not have such thoughts. If he were to join them now, the biggest possibility would be that he would be swallowed up. What do you think? Wang Feng looked at the crowd. It's a little wild, but it's not impossible to give it a try. Ning Fengji was the first to answer. From another direction, we can disintegrate the Martial Soul Alliance and use the chicken to lay eggs to unify the continent. However, there should be a lot of resistance within the 2 empires, right? After all, joining the Martial Soul Alliance is equivalent to bowing down to the Martial Soul Alliance. Compared to the large empires, these sects were still small. They only managed a few thousand people. After joining the Martial Soul Alliance, the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile sect would also be under the control of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile sect. In terms of losses, it was nothing more than being suppressed and ostracized by the Martial Soul Alliance. However, if they joined together and formed a stronger force, joining the Martial Soul Alliance and letting Wang Feng change the other party, there would be no changes. In that case, there wouldn't be any changes. On the contrary, his 7 Treasures Glazed sect will be able to develop even more. To be honest, for sects and empires, as long as there were common interests in this world, there was no hatred that couldn't be resolved. I think, if it can really change the Martial Soul Alliance, the Blue Lightning Overlord sect will be the first to join. Yu Yuanjin smiled slightly. Even the 2 sects thought so. There was no need to say anything else. Right now, there were only a few sects and a few elemental academies surrounding the Heaven Do Empire. As for the Imperial family, Little Madman, you are His Majesty Avalanche's teacher. If this idea is your idea, he shouldn't be against it. Dugabo coughed a few times and said in a low voice, Actually, His Majesty Avalanche is facing a lot of problems these days because many nobles in the Empire want to join the Martial Soul Alliance. He himself is also facing a lot of pressure. This was out of Tang San's expectations. But thinking about it, it seemed normal, because the Martial Soul Alliance was using all kinds of methods to nibble at the internal affairs of the two empires. But because of the prestige of the imperial family and the empire, so most of the nobles didn't say it out loud. This idea of yours will be able to gain their approval. Douluo finished speaking. Tang San nodded and looked at the four hall masters. The four hall masters used to be the four great single attribute sects and were targeted by the Martial Soul Palace. Sect Master, don't look at us. Titan laughed. We are now members of the Tang sect. Whatever you want to do, we will follow you. The old gorilla is right. Niogao also nodded and said, moreover, Sect Master and Great Elder are like a pair of swords. If you can really change the Martial Soul Alliance, we will support you 100%. The other two also smiled and nodded. In that case, Brother Feng and I will go to the headquarters of the Martial Soul Alliance in 2 days. Tang San's eyes flashed. We can also use this opportunity to see if BB Don is dead or not and what the situation is. This was actually his other purpose. Under the pretense of joining the Martial Soul Alliance, he wanted to see the internal reaction of the Martial Soul Alliance. If BB Don was really alive and saw that they had joined the Martial Soul Alliance, there would definitely be a huge reaction and action. Even if he wouldn't kill them in front of everyone, he would secretly make it difficult for them to leave. Therefore, it was more dangerous. Wang Feng glanced at Tang San. Little San's consideration could be considered thorough. To be able to think of this idea, he was worthy of being the protagonist of the original work. Even if the current situation was very different from the original work, he could still think of a way to deal with this situation. It's a pity that if we go to the headquarters of the Martial Soul Alliance and find out that BB Don is not dead. Thinking of this, Wang Feng was suddenly stunned. Vaguely, he thought of a possibility. Old poison. I will discuss this with the imperial family of the Heaven Do Empire in the next 2 days, Tang San said. I will also immediately send someone to report to Mu Bai and Zhu Qing and explain my thoughts. I think the resistance from the Star Luo Empire might be stronger. Douluo nodded in agreement. Chapter 9:14. You have to be very careful when you go to the Martial Soul Alliance's headquarters. The Grandmaster frowned. There are at least 20 titled Douluo in the Martial Soul Alliance's headquarters. If BB Don, at this point, the Grandmaster sighed softly. If she's really still alive, it'll be difficult for you to withdraw from this. Don't worry. Old Bone, Yu Yuanjin, and Douluo will go with them. The Sword Douluo agreed. There were 5 titled Douluo in total. Even the Martial Soul Alliance wouldn't be able to stop them easily. Oh yes, third brother. Isn't your great-grandfather an exceptional Douluo? Since he's recovered, why didn't he help you? Ma Hongjun suddenly asked. Tang San thought for a moment and said, Great-grandfather went to see God's Island after telling me about what happened back then. Ahem, he had something important to discuss with Senior Possessee. He also told me to cultivate as soon as possible and return to see God's Island. Wang Fengxin thought to himself, isn't it just meeting his old lover? What other important things can it be? However, after the discussion, everyone immediately took action. Although Tang San and Wang Feng were the ones who came up with such an important decision, it still had to be implemented within their respective sections. Especially the Heaven Do Empire. It still needed some time. Wang Feng naturally didn't care about these things. He left the Heaven Do Empire's matters to Tang San. Over the next 2 days, Wang Feng taught Ning Rongrong how to use spiritual power to control tools. He taught her step by step. To be precise, he used spiritual power to fuse with her. Her spiritual power was naturally not weak, as she had already cultivated the 7 orifices' exquisite control. With Wang Feng teaching her personally, Ning Rongrong learned very quickly. In an empty space, a small crossbow arrow flew leisurely in midair. It flashed past a pitch-black light. The crossbow bolt spun in the air and suddenly shot toward Wang Feng. However, Before it could reach 3 meters away from Wang Feng, it had already fallen to the ground. Aya, it didn't work again. In the distance, Ning Rongrong pouted. I can't get within 3 meters of you every time. At this time, Ning Rongrong's forehead was covered in sweat. The consumption of spiritual power training was no less intense than other types of training. As she spoke, Ning Rongrong giggled and walked over. She threw herself on Wang Feng's body and said, Wang Feng, I'm tired. Train more if you're tired. Once you get used to it, you won't feel tired anymore, Wang Feng said. Your attack power won't even be able to break through the defense of a rank 40 or 50 Soul Master. He used his spiritual power to form a faint, invisible shield to test the extent of Ning Rongrong's control. No. Ning Rongrong wrapped her arms around Wang Feng's neck. Wang Feng, let's go shopping. You spent so much time with me. Training all day is too cruel. Can you bear to do that? As she spoke, Ning Rongrong's eyes trembled. Her face flushed red. If I rest for a day, I can accompany you at night. I don't want to train until nighttime and then fall asleep on the bed. Ahem. Wang Feng looked at Ning Rongrong. He wrapped his arms around her waist and said, You want to accompany me at night? In your dreams. Ning Rongrong, if you don't want me to accompany you, then who do you want to accompany you? Ning Rongrong pouted. Wang Feng, are you still thinking of another woman? Is it Zhu Qing? After she finished speaking, Ning Rongrong acted coquettishly and angrily. Wang Feng directly slapped her twice, then immediately blushed and obediently stopped talking. However, in the past 2 days, other than training with Ning Rongrong, he also went shopping with her. Heavendoe City was no longer as bustling as before due to the decrease in Soul Masters. However, it was still the imperial city of the empire. Wang Feng, why did you say you would only give me an answer a year later? Ning Rongrong had her hands behind her back. She was like a happy little butterfly as she circled around Wang Feng. Her white dress fluttered in the wind, occasionally revealing her snow-white skin. Her bright and beautiful face was rippling with joy. There was nothing else in her eyes except for the man in front of her. Her eyebrows relaxed slightly, exuding a soft affection. Is there something important in a year's time? Ning Rongrong asked softly. Yes, there is something very important. Wang Feng nodded. After today's visit to the Martial Spirit Hall, I may leave for a period of time. I will only be back after a year. Ning Rongrong stopped, grabbed Wang Feng with both hands, and suddenly fell silent. She suddenly pointed to the street in front and said, Wang Feng, do you still remember this street? The street went straight ahead, and at the end was the great soul arena of Heavendoe City. Although the Martial Spirit Alliance and the two empires were like fire and water, the great soul arena was not closed because of this. I remember, Wang Feng said with a smile. Back then, you and I were dragged into an illusion by that soul master called Shernyan. It was here. Hearing this, Ning Rongrong smiled like a flower. Hee, you still remember. I thought you would forget. Do you know what I experienced in the illusion? Ning Rongrong held Wang Feng's hands tightly. In the illusion, I found that the 7-treasure glazed tile sect was all gone. Father was gone, Grandpa Jian and Grandpa Gu were also gone. I was so scared at that time. But in the end, you appeared in my illusion and saved us. I was so happy at that time. Later, when the Martial Spirit Hall attacked the 7-treasure glazed tile sect, I thought the scene in my illusion would appear. Fortunately, you appeared again at that time. As she spoke, Ning Rongrong gently punched Wang Feng. Although you pretended to be the White Pope Tiff, and you lied to me. Thinking of this, Wang Feng sighed. With the manpower sent by the Martial Spirit Hall at that time, it was not difficult to destroy the 7-treasure glazed tile sect. At that time, there were at least 6 title Douluo besides him. Among them, Qian Jun and Yin Mo were not inferior to Chen Xian and Gu Douluo at that time. Their soul power was even higher than the two of them. At this time, Ning Rongrong suddenly tiptoed and kissed Wang Feng at lightning speed. Wang Feng, 1 year later, I must hear a satisfactory answer. Otherwise, 3 days later, Wang Feng, Tang San, the Sword Dalu, and several other title Dalu set off from Martial Spirit City. For Tang San, this was the second time they set off from Martial Spirit City. The journey was very fast. Naturally, Wang Feng wanted to go to Martial Spirit City not only because of Tang San's decision. He also wanted to know about Qianren Xue. In less than 2 days, the group arrived at Martial Spirit City. For Tang San, the first time he came to Martial Spirit City was during the Continental Elite Soul Master Tournament. It took him more than half a month. Brother Feng's flying sword is faster than Senior Sword Douluo's flying sword. Tang San looked at the magnificent Martial Spirit City in front of him and couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 9:15. His sword is controlled by spiritual power. I'm afraid his spiritual power is not ordinary. The sword Douluo nodded slightly. Their group were all riding on Wang Feng's flying sword. Otherwise, their speed would be completely different. All right, you secretly learned my 7-kill sword technique, right? The sword Douluo narrowed his eyes at Wang Feng. Cough, cough. Wang Feng controlled his flying sword to land on the ground and coughed a few times. Senior, how can you say that I secretly learned something between us soul masters? I actually didn't want to learn it secretly. Wang Feng sighed and said, it's just that Senior used it once. I don't know why, but I couldn't help but learn it. What can I do about it? I'm also very helpless. The sword Douluo suppressed the urge to beat this kid up. Calm down, calm down. I can't beat him now. The sword Douluo told himself in his heart. Haha. The bone Douluo laughed a few times. Old sword monster, with your lousy sword technique, it's already good enough that someone can learn it. The sword Douluo snorted and said, Kid, I'm not going to pursue the sword technique. I just hope that you will treat Rong well in the future. This 7-kill sword technique and 7-kill sword intent are nothing. If you can learn it after seeing it once, it's your own ability. Of course. Wang Feng nodded. Actually, thinking back, among these girls, Rong was the first to know him. Wang Feng shook his head and walked into Martial Spirit City with the group. The current Martial Spirit City could be said to be completely different from a few years ago. When they first came to Martial Spirit City for the tournament, it wasn't prosperous. Most of them were soul masters from the Martial Spirit Hall. Although it was called a city, there weren't many people inside. But it was different now. The city was still the same city. But there was an endless stream of people, and soul masters were as common as clouds. There was an endless stream of soul masters coming and going like a long river, flocking in and out of Martial Spirit City's gate. Walking into the city, one could see the prosperity of Martial Spirit City. On both sides of the central road, there were many shops, but most of them served soul masters. On the auxiliary road at the back, there were many shops serving civilians as well as various entertainment venues and buildings. Everything was in order. Within the city, there would be a small team of soul masters wearing the uniforms of the Martial Soul Alliance, patrolling the city every 10 minutes to prevent any accidents from happening. These small teams of soul masters were all above rank 50 and below rank 70. Their leaders were all soul sages, at the very least, red-robed bishops. It could be seen that the Martial Soul Alliance placed great importance on the safety and order of the city. The main cities controlled by the Martial Soul Alliance all have soul master patrols of this level. Only the Martial Soul Hall can provide so many soul masters to maintain the order of a city. You enged inside. Then, you went up to the Pope's Palace. At the foot of the mountain where the Pope's Palace was located, the group was stopped by a red-robed archbishop. However, after stating their intentions, the archcardinal looked at them warily, but still led them to the pontiff's palace. Even after so many years, the Pope's palace was still as majestic and mighty as ever. When Tang San and the others arrived at the square in front of the Pope's palace, several figures suddenly walked out of the Pope's palace. Wang Feng looked at the Douluo Palace on the other side. The Douluo Palace and the Pope's Palace were on the opposite side of Martial Soul City. Although the Elder's Palace was near the Pope's Palace, it was completely different from the Douluo Palace. Tang San, a total of 10 titled Douluo walked out of the Pope's Palace. Some of them were unfamiliar faces to Wang Feng. They were probably newcomers to the martial soul hall. The golden alligator Daw, Qianjun demon vanquisher, and the chrysanthemum ghost Dalu were all there. The golden alligator Dalu had already broken through to rank 98, and his aura was extremely powerful. When the 10-titled Dalu saw Tang San, the Qianjun demon vanquisher behind them was shocked and furious. "How dare you come to the Pope's palace?" As he spoke, the four of them were about to walk out. However, the golden alligator Douluo waved his hand and stopped them. Seeing this, Tang San smiled and used his mind to send a message. Looking at the situation, BB Don is most likely dead. Otherwise, they wouldn't be looking like this. Wang Feng frowned slightly and didn't say anything. At this moment, the golden alligator Dalu glanced at Qianjun and demon vanquisher. In the next moment, the four-titled Dalu fell silent. "Why have you all come here?" The golden alligator Dalu looked at them indifferently, and his gaze paused on Wang Feng. In terms of seniority, he was the highest in the martial soul hall, even though he didn't go to the Sea God's Island. However, he was qualified to know that the white-clothed Pope Diff was a spy. "May I know if the Pope is here?" Tang San smiled and said, "We're here to discuss something with the Pope of the Martial Soul Alliance. Can you ask her to come out?" The golden alligator waved his hand and interrupted. "The Pope is cultivating in seclusion. She's not in the mood to receive guests. It's the same if you have something to say to me. You're not from the Martial Soul Alliance. If there's nothing else, please leave as soon as possible." Hearing this, Tang San transmitted his voice again. It seems that BB Don is really dead. The higher-ups of the Martial Soul Hall, especially the four-titled Dalu, clearly know that I ambushed them, but they don't intend to do anything now. Obviously, they want to hide this matter. The sword Dalu and the others nodded slightly. Tang San killed BB Don with a sneak attack. Logically speaking, the Martial Soul Alliance should have taken action against them long ago. Now, it seemed that they wanted to hide this matter completely. They wanted to maintain the current situation of the Martial Soul Alliance. If BB Don was still alive, seeing Tang San and the others come to the Martial Soul City, he would definitely give the order to capture them without hesitation. Obviously, he didn't. This could only mean that the Martial Soul Alliance wanted to hide the news of Bibidon's death. They had to swallow their anger to prevent it from affecting the overall situation of the Martial Soul Alliance. Wang Feng thought, could it be that BB Don didn't return to the Pope's palace at all? Did he directly break through and become a god? Otherwise, the people of the Martial Soul Hall wouldn't be acting like this. Could it be that they were acting? But they couldn't all be acting, right? Even the four-titled Dalu, Qianjun Demon Vanquisher, and Chrysanthemum Ghost didn't seem to be acting at all. Wang Fengxin was astonished. BB Don really didn't return to the Pope's palace? Then where did she go? "I'll tell you," Tang San said. "That's fine too. To be honest, we think that the Martial Soul Alliance is the trend. We've been completely convinced by the white-clothed Pope Tiff of your alliance. The two empires, several sects, and the Tang sect, for the prosperity of the continent, and to promote the development of the world of soul masters. We plan to join the Martial Soul Alliance. Can you take responsibility for this?" Tang San looked at the golden alligator Daw. At the same time, the sword Daw and bone Daw stepped forward and said, Tang San's intention represents the 7 treasure glazed tile sect's intention. Dugu Bo and Yu Yuanjin also stepped forward. Chapter 9:16. Tang San was now the imperial tutor of the Heaven Do Empire. He and Dugu Bo had seen through the Martial Spirit Hall scheme and saved the Heaven Do Empire. His status was naturally very high, and he was recognized as Avalanche's master. Now that Avalanche had become the emperor of the Heaven Do Empire, he was naturally the imperial tutor. He did not speak for the Star Luo Empire, but he could speak for the Heaven Do Empire and the 2 sections. Join the alliance? Persuaded by white-clothed Pope Tiff, the golden alligator Douluo and the other titled Douluo were stunned. Wait, wasn't white-clothed Pope Tiff Wang Feng's spy in the Martial Spirit Hall? How could he have persuaded Tang San and the 2 empires? Did he join the Martial Spirit Alliance directly? There were only 2 empires and a few sects and academies that had not joined the Martial Spirit Alliance. If that was the case, didn't that mean that the Martial Spirit Alliance had been unified? The 10 titled Douluo's breathing quickened. The 10 titled Douluo all turned to look at Wang Feng, especially Qianjun, Gue Ju, and the other 2 titled Douluo who were most familiar with Wang Feng. After all, they were also present on the Sea God's Island. White-clothed Pope Tiff and the Pope seemed to have a special relationship. Back in the Great Stardew Forest, they even teamed up to fight against the million-year soul beast. If what Tang San said was true, could it be that the battle between the Pope and Lord Pope Tiff on the Sea God's Island was just an act? How is that possible? Could Lord Pope Tiff be the legendary double agent? It seemed like Wang Feng, but in reality, he had completely submitted to His Highness the Pope and became a spy for His Highness the Pope beside Tang San and the others. The titled Douluo felt their scalps go numb as they thought of this. Are you telling the truth? The golden alligator Douluo seemed to be asking Tang San, but his gaze was on Wang Feng. Wang Feng thought for a moment and said slowly, "Yes, I did persuade them to join the Martial Spirit Alliance. May I know if the Pope is here?" Hearing this, the chrysanthemum Douluo's sharp voice sounded behind him. "Lord Pope Tiff, don't you know that His Highness the Pope?" Just as Ju Douluo's words trailed off, Guo abruptly jabbed him in the shoulder, and he instantly shut his mouth. Meanwhile, His Holiness the Pope. He returned to the Pope's palace in advance after our last encounter in the Great Stardew Forest. He's now in closed-door cultivation and can't come out for the time being. The chrysanthemum Douluo turned to Wang Feng with a complex expression. Hearing this, Tang San smiled and said, "Brother Feng is the white Pope Tiff of your Martial Spirit Palace. We've been opposing your Martial Spirit Palace for a long time. But after your Martial Spirit Palace became the white Pope Tiff, Big Brother Feng decided that your Martial Spirit Palace wasn't that bad. He's been trying to convince us to join the Martial Soul Alliance ever since the Sea God's Island. We also trust Big Brother Feng. At first, we refused, but in the end, I was persuaded by him and decided to join the Martial Soul Alliance. I don't want to fight with you anymore." Hearing this, the golden alligator Douluo and the others stared at Wang Feng in astonishment. Wang Feng, this was an excuse for them to join the Martial Soul Alliance. It was also to wash away the rumors that Wang Feng was a spy for the Martial Soul Alliance. Otherwise, it would be too suspicious if Tang, San, and the 2 sects, who had always hated them, suddenly chose to join the Martial Soul Alliance. Hence, Wang Feng took the lead. Their ultimate goal was naturally to join the Martial Soul Alliance and change the Martial Soul Alliance from within. "Lord Pope Tiff, you're really impressive." The golden alligator Douluo looked deeply at Wang Feng. "You're wandering between 2 sides, but you're still able to convince your friends and brothers to let go of their grievances and join the Martial Soul Alliance to complete the unification of the alliance." The other titled Doll also stared at Wang Feng. They didn't know what to say. This was too unbelievable. They thought that these stubborn organizations would struggle for a long time. They didn't expect the white Pope Tiff, who had already betrayed the Martial Soul Alliance, to turn around and convince their friends and brothers, the 2 sects, and the 2 empires to join the Martial Soul Alliance. At this moment, a loud and clear voice suddenly sounded from afar. "Good lad, no wonder you didn't want to come back. So this was your plan?" The voice belonged to Thousand Dalu. In the distance, Thousand Dalu brought several titled Douluo and walked over from the Elder Palace. "Great consecrator." The golden alligator nodded slightly at Thousand Dalu. In terms of age, he was older than Thousand Dalu. Naturally, there was no need for any formalities. Thousand Dalu walked over confidently. His gaze swept across Tang, San, and the others, and a smile appeared on his face. "Good, you're really something, lad. The Pope isn't here, so I can take care of things. Since you were able to convince them to join the Martial Soul Alliance, you're quite capable. However, the Martial Soul Alliance isn't something that you can join as you wish. Tang San, do you know that if you join the Martial Soul Alliance, although you'll still be the sect leader of the Tang sect, you'll be controlled by the Alliance? Do you understand?" Thousand Dao Lu's gaze landed on Tang San and the others. These words were not only for Tang San, but also for the others. Of course, Tang San smiled. Brother Feng is the white popediff of the Martial Soul Alliance. I haven't heard that his position has been removed. He's also a member of the Alliance. We'll only be controlled by him. There shouldn't be a problem, right? Thousand Dao Lu narrowed his eyes. Of course there won't be a problem. However, you have to agree to one condition of mine. Thousand Dao Lu said these words to Wang Feng. Old man, I know what your condition is. I agree, Wang Feng said slowly. Thousand Dao Lu smiled and said, follow me. As for Tang San and the others, you can go back and prepare for the ceremony to join the alliance. At that time, other than you, the higher-ups of the two empires and the sects behind you must come to the Pope's palace. Tang San smiled and nodded. The golden alligator Daw took a few steps forward and whispered to Thousand Dao Lu. Will there be a problem? A problem? Thousand Dao Lu glanced at Wang Feng. What problem? When they join the Martial Soul Alliance, they'll be members of the alliance. Any problem won't be a problem. The golden alligator nodded thoughtfully. On the other side, Wang Feng said to Tang San, I know what Thousand Dao Lu wants me to do. Let's go back and prepare. Brother Feng, will there be a problem? Tang San frowned and whispered, just as you said, Thousand Dao Lu represents the strength of the Martial Soul Alliance. Now that BB Don is dead, he'll definitely take control of the situation. Brother Feng, you could defeat him. You'd better be careful. Wang Feng nodded and said, don't worry. I'm the white popediff after all. My prestige in the Martial Soul Alliance isn't lower than Thousand Dao Lu. With your words, they won't think that I'm a spy. The two of them communicated with each other telepathically. After the discussion, Wang Feng left with Thousand Dao Lu. Chapter 9:17. The plan is a perfect success. Tang San, the Sword Douluo, and the others looked at each other and smiled. With Brother Feng as the leader, they would infiltrate the Martial Spirit Alliance. With Brother Feng's strength and prestige in the Martial Spirit Palace, they would be able to change and absorb the Martial Spirit Alliance. Without BB Don, the Thousand Dao stream was nothing to be afraid of. Next, they just needed to join the Martial Spirit Alliance step by step, achieve true unification, and then change the Martial Spirit Alliance. They formed the Martial Spirit Alliance with the white-robed Pope Wang Feng as the leader, achieving true unity. Thousand Dao stream brought Wang Feng out of the Pope's palace and walked towards the Douluo palace. Kid, I don't want to care about your plans. On the way, Thousand Dao stream said indifferently, to tell you the truth, according to the four-titled Daw, BB Don is already dead. He was killed by Tang San. BB Don hasn't appeared in the Pope's palace these days. You can persuade Tang San and the others to join the Martial Spirit Alliance, so you must have ulterior motives. But I don't care, because as long as you join the Martial Spirit Alliance, you will be a member of the Martial Spirit Alliance in the future. Wang Feng looked at the great consecrator and thought to himself, this old man isn't stupid. He's also an old fox. You can continue to cause trouble. Thousand Dao stream smiled faintly. You are also the white popediff of the Martial Spirit Palace. In the future, you will represent our Martial Spirit Alliance. But now, if you can't help Xiao Shui, you won't have any chance to cause trouble. Hearing this, Wang Feng frowned slightly. Qianren Xue, what's the situation? Follow me, and you will know. Wang Feng had only heard of the Douluo Palace. He had never been here. According to history, this ancient palace was the origin of the Martial Spirit Palace. The original Martial Spirit Palace was founded by the beliefs of a group of titled Douluo. Countless tombstones of titled Douluo were stored here. Although it was called a palace, it looked more like a cemetery after entering. However, every tombstone here had a unique aura. The auspicious Cloud Douluo. His martial soul was the auspicious cloud. He was born in year 356 of the Douluo calendar and died in year 487 of the Douluo calendar. His soul power rank was 94. He once slaughtered 3 90,000-year-soul beasts by himself. Broken-winged Daw, martial soul broken-winged angel, born in year 372 of the Douluo calendar, died in year 495 of the Douluo calendar, soul power rank 95. Almost every tombstone was filled with the life stories of the fallen titled Douluo, as well as the ranks of their martial souls. Wang Feng discovered that the aura emitted by the many phantoms of the thousand Dao flows, great radiant heavenly hall's judgment, was somewhat similar to the angel martial spirits' tombstones on the tombstones. The angel clan has a long history. Thousand Daos Lu continued. There are many titled Douluo of the angel clan here. Soon, I will be buried here as well. At this point, Dalu sighed. At the center of these tombstones, there was an ancient hall that stood in the center of these tombstones. Entering this hall, Wang Feng could feel a powerful aura coming from the front of his face. Looking around, there were countless memorial tablets. The memorial tablets of titled Douluo. The ones outside were tombstones, and the ones inside were the real memorial tablets. In the center of the magnificent hall, there was an angel statue that was more than 10 meters tall. It emitted a divine aura. This statue was floating in midair. Its wings were spread open, and it looked like it was going to soar into the sky. Its entire body was emitting a holy and holy aura. However, the sword in its hand was gone. It was probably the angelic holy sword. At this moment, Qian Renshua was lying under the statue. However, his body was emitting a black aura. This is Wang Feng looked at Qian Renshua in surprise. After the Sea God's Island, Xiao Shui was filled with anger and hatred. Qian Dalu said slowly. She wanted to pass the 9th test quickly. She probably thought that she could revive someone after becoming a god. Wang Feng. But angels are holy and flawless. Qian Dalu said in a deep voice. To open the 9th test, one needs to sacrifice the life of a divine servant. I originally needed to sacrifice my life to open the final test for Xiao Shui. But at the last moment, I failed. Xiao Shui's state of mind was flawed, and she was dragged into the angel fantasy world. Qian Dalu looked at the statue. The angel fantasy world is a spiritual space. It is a place created by the angel god to test the descendants of angels. The 9th test requires the heir of an angel to enter the angel fantasy world and cleanse the evil will in their body, as well as the source of their emotions, to become a true holy and holy angel god. But because Xiao Shui's heart was flawed, her will of hatred was too deep. I only opened it halfway when she was forcefully dragged in by the angel fantasy world. Until now, she still hasn't come out. This is not a normal 9th test. It is very likely that Xiao Shui has been trapped there. Qian Dalu sighed. As long as the flaw in her heart is not complete, she will not be able to come out, let alone pass the 9th test. After listening to Qian Dalu, Wang Feng fell into deep thought. You wanted to enter the angel fantasy world? Wang Feng asked. Bring her out. That's right. Qian Dalu slowly said, I am a divine servant. Without the 9th test, I am not qualified to enter the angel fantasy world. But you have a unique angel martial spirit. That day, I used that move to see if I could purify your dark angel and turn it into a light angel like me. In this way, it is possible to obtain the approval of the angel god and obtain the opportunity to enter the angel fantasy world. Hearing this, Wang Feng understood. No wonder. But your angel martial spirit seems to have a strange side. It has not been purified. Qian Dalu shook his head and said, Even the true sun flame of the angel god is unable to purify your dark angel martial spirit. However, although it has not been purified, it does not seem to be a pure dark angel. Perhaps it can also succeed. Qian Dalu could not see the mysterious angel formed by energy on Wang Feng's body. He directly knelt down. Kid, the angel fantasy world is incomparably dangerous. Qian Dalu looked at Wang Feng and said in a deep voice, Are you willing to give it a try? Wang Feng thought for a moment and said, Let's give it a try. Speaking of Qian Renshua, it was because of him that the change in the 9th test had occurred. In addition, he also wanted to figure out the situation of the dormant angel martial spirit in his body. Perhaps He could get the answer after entering the angel fantasy world. All right, let's let the angel god see your aptitude and test. Dalu said in a deep voice, if the angel god recognizes you, then you have the opportunity to enter the angel fantasy world. If not, I can use my identity as a divine servant to forcefully open the angel fantasy world and let you enter it unimpeded. But whether you can bring Xiao Shui out or not depends on your ability. After saying that, Dalu shouted and released the six-winged angel martial spirit. Come forward. Daolu's hand contained a ball of golden light. The soul rings on his body revolved and directly blasted into the angel statue. In an instant, the angel statue rose up and fell between Wang Feng's eyebrows. At this moment, the angel statue erupted with an even more intense golden light. It turned into a golden pillar of light that shot into the sky. Dalu was stunned. This is the Angel 9 tests? It seems that the angel god really thinks highly of this kid. However, why does it feel a little strange? P.S. There are a few more updates in the evening. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.